Hi, everybody. Welcome to Political Head Trauma. This is your host, Jared Anderson, and myself, Holly, and we are very excited to be here today. We're introducing our guest today, Colby Jenkins, who's running for Congress in District 2, and he is running against Celeste Malloy.
Yes. Yeah, we're excited to talk with him. I don't know why this isn't bleeding across live right now, but we'll have to see how it does. Okay, it's coming across on yours. All right, we're good. But anyways, yes, we got Colby coming on. I'm excited to talk to him. He is a former U.S. Army Special Forces colonel. He's worked as a liaison to Congress and I think to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, things like that. So excited to hear his insight, and we're going to listen to just his thoughts on why he wants to be our congressman, and what he would plan to do, his goals in that.
What a resume.
Yeah,
I mean, Green Beret Colonel.
Yeah, he's got a heavy duty resume.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Let's bring him in.
Yep, let's bring him in. All right, Colby, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? Thanks for the opportunity.
Good.
Thanks for being on, and thank you for your service, sir.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you. It's a family business for sure.
Yeah, I was reading on your website that your grandmother served in World War II.
My grandfather. Yes.
Or your grandfather. I apologize. I must not know how to read.
Okay.
Although there were plenty of women who served in World War II,
for sure.
Medical staff and such, but not to the same that women serve nowadays.
Yes.
A different time and a different era. So you were a Special Forces colonel, and then you went on. I'll just pull up your website, make sure I don't get this incorrect, and we'll share the website. The website is colbyforutah.com. And then you went on and you did some where are we at? Okay, so you were a civilian legislative strategic advisor to the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's a lot of words to say. I worked in the Pentagon and managed legislative affairs for the chairman and the vice chairman. Yes.
Okay, and then so was that? How do I put this? Was that you being kind of being a go-between between the legislative side and the vice chairman? Kind of, I don't know, how do I say this easier, but being a dictionary for what the other one said so that they would understand it?
A little bit. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. If you want, I could start from the beginning or tell you just about that.
Yeah,
period.
Let's start from the beginning. You're a West Point graduate. You went in, you go into the Army. I'll just lay out the quick military career. You go into the Army, infantry officer, you get Ranger tab, and then you pursue Special Forces. You get Special Forces. And then were you a full bird when you got out?
I'm actually still in. I'm in the reserve. Oh. Yeah, I'm a senior colonel now, full colonel. Yeah.
Okay.
5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Old colonel.
All right. What unit are you with? The 96 here in Utah, or?
I'm not. I'm actually with the unit that works for the chief of the Army Reserve in DC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I go back there every so often.
Okay. Well, no, that's good.
How old were you when you got in? Were you still like out of high school or college?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Roosevelt, Utah, out in the Uinta Basin. Small town, family homesteaded there. That's where my roots are from and still are. And from Roosevelt, I went to West Point right out of high school. I was the first kid from Duchesne County to ever go to
on scholarship.
And yeah, when you get accepted to the academy, it's 4 years a full ride essentially.
It's a different type of scholarship.
Well, don't you have to have like senator's recommendations and things like that?
Yes,
You do, yeah. It's a congressional nomination from either a congressman or a senator or the president. And so I got a nomination, and then West Point accept that. There's roughly about 13,000-ish that apply every year, and then about 5,000 get a nomination, and then West Point will pick about 1,000 from those.
Wow. So that alone is pretty exceptional. I mean, that's cool.
Well,
yeah.
I just share it because I was a small town kid that came from small town Duchesne County, but the reason I even had a shot is because I had good people around me. I had a tremendous high school counselor and Ina Nilsson, and coaches and parents. When I started saying this is what I would like to do, none of them said, I don't think so. No, they all said, how can we help? Yeah, let's do this. And so
I hate to call you out, but what year was that when you graduated?
Yeah, no problem. High school was 93.
You graduated in 93?
High school, yes.
We're
Ma'am.
the same age, sir.
He's a year older than we are.
What have I done with my life? I graduated in 93.
I graduated in 94.
So we all got a lot of living left. We're all young.
And I'm also
Thank you.
I'm also a veteran.
Oh, well, thank you for your service.
My time was easy. You guys, the guys that went over this knew I was in under Clinton. I mean, I went to Gitmo and processed, I guess, immigrants over. I don't know. They were actually asylum seekers then.
Oh,
you have to call them illegally migrating people,
undocumented individuals. But anyways,
breaking immigrants.
Yeah, I was a part of that JTF 160. So my time was easy. It's you guys that went over to the sandbox that earned it. I mean, this is a heavy thing that these young guys, especially now, I think we're going to see a lot of needs boil out of this, much in the same way we saw boil out of Vietnam.
And my dad was a veteran in Vietnam, and so he was there in '69 for I think 13 months. No one comes home the same, whether it's you're fighting in the jungle or in the sandbox, as he says, which is totally different sort of fighting. I think that our veterans do what they have to do, and I think the military of our past was exceptional and extraordinary, and I'm disappointed that we didn't get the wins. But then after years go by and hindsight and all of that, I mean, did we belong there? I think a lot of veterans ask ourselves that. And
well, it's the scope. It's a different war. World War II, where you had defined armies, it's the guerrilla warfare that causes that large toll, because you're essentially never out of contact. And that's what they found when they psychologically studied Vietnam was, World War I, average contact, I think, was something like 25 days a year. World War II, 32 days a year. Vietnam was 220 days a year, average contact. And that's where, but anyways, that's not what I wanted to go with. And this is going to be, I promise, probably the hardest one. And you may not be able to answer this, but what are your thoughts? Okay, we know that our military is having a hard time with recruitment. There's a lot of speculation about that. I have my own speculation.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on, it seems like we've got a modern military leadership that's leaning into this, for lack of a better term, woke narrative that I think is one, undermining its usual pond that it fishes in, and also at the same time, in my feeling, and I may be incorrect, weakens the overall combat readiness of the military. And what are your thoughts on that? And as a congressman, you would be faced with that. You would be faced with asking the Joint Chiefs, which you probably personally know, why do you keep leaning into this when every time you lean into it, the young men from Tennessee that make up virtually, 15% of our military, when they're a state that shouldn't make up that much, decide to say, that's not the place for me. That's not a place where I'll feel valued or safe.
Rural Utah, rural anywhere, the usual pond per se.
Yeah.
He's getting less and less in recruitment.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And really at the heart of why I'm even in this race. Just some context before I answer. So my wife and I, we have 2 daughters. Our youngest daughter, Olivia, she's at West Point right now.
Wow.
Oh, congratulations.
That's incredible.
She's incredible all on her own. She's the first girl from St. George to ever go to the academy, and she's doing great. And
no kid, the first one from St. George.
First one from St. George.
That's incredible.
There's been an awesome gal that graduated last year from Hurricane. So we've had Washington County represented, but yeah, she's the first from. And the mayor, when she got accepted to West Point, our St. George mayor gave her a key to the city and gave her a great honor. And
that's incredibly an honor, because having had a college down there, being a college town, you've got a lot of young people, extraordinary people. You and your wife must just be over the moon about that.
It's been good, but I share that.
Do you know what she wants to do military wise?
She's a space science major right now, and
is that it?
She's always been intrigued with space, and oddly enough, West Point has more astronauts, or has provided more astronauts than any other branch in the military.
That's the thing for anyone listening right now. West Point is not an Army college. It does represent the Army at the football game, but West Point is our military's college. It's everybody.
So does Space Force come out of West Point?
You could choose to branch into Space Force. Annapolis is the Naval Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Air Force is the Air Force Academy in Colorado, and there's Merchant Marines as well. But yeah, I just share that about her because when I look at the military and the problems that you outlined, I've got personal skin in the game.
Yeah.
And when you look at our military from this current administration, they've taken it from a warfighting posture to a social experimental posture.
Mm-hmm.
How can we, currently right now, but believe it or not, they have active policies that if you want to get transgender surgery, the military, the taxpayers are going to pay for it.
And that just kills our warfighting capability.
Not to mention, it makes us look like a joke on the world stage.
Yeah.
You'd never see this in China. You'd never see this in Russia. The actual threats to our nation, or Iran, or any Middle Eastern country, they're laughing at us.
Yes.
Yeah. How many bullets do we have to not buy to turn Timmy into Tammy?
Oh, boy.
That's math.
Yeah, for sure. When it gets right down to it. And, our Army is at its lowest levels since World War II. And the Army has missed its recruiting 2 years in a row. So yeah, we all know the issues. But for me, it boils down to leadership. Our youth, my daughter, they want to follow winners. They join the military to be ultimately a warfighter. They want to be ready and they want to be lethal. They don't want to have social experiments. They don't want to be taught CRT, or they don't want to have a chief diversity officer worrying about
DEI.
They want to fight our wars and win. And
how about like under the Obama administration, where you couldn't even fight, you couldn't be an aggressor, and he was having our military stand down unless they're fired upon, and even then they needed orders. Like, their hands were tied. And in war, America should dominate, shouldn't we?
For sure. When we fail to be a deterrent, like now, of no fault of our soldiers,
right?
But when we fail to present a deterrent, then look at what happens to the world. Look at all of our adversaries are filling their oats, they're crossing their borders, they're stoking the battles because we are not a deterrent. And so for me, it's about leadership. One, it'd be nice if we had a Secretary of Defense that showed up for work. That'd be a good start. And so for me, that's back to, maybe we'll talk about this, but that's why we need to have President Trump back. That leadership matters, and all the downstream choices from a new administration, the new Secretary of Defense, new Secretary of State, all those appointees make a difference. And
he didn't have a really good Secretary of Defense while he was in either, or maybe Milley is just a very political animal that once the new boss got in, he saw the winds of change and said, I'm studying Karl Marx now and I need to understand white rage.
He had a lot of people in with him he couldn't trust. And because a lot of our party was against him right out of the gate. I mean, we had both houses and the presidency, and yet he still had to write executive orders. And I say that a lot.
And they still got ignored.
Do you know President Trump? Have you met him?
I have not personally met him, but certainly worked with people who were in the White House on his staff.
It sounds like you might have a resume to maybe have a position in his cabinet.
Well, I certainly want to be in the foxhole with him as fighting for Utah and then supporting his efforts as well. And on the military topic, I look forward to the opportunity to, I certainly will focus on our home issues. That's my priority, our natural resources and keeping the federal government out of our backyard, which is, we'll talk about that. But I want to also be on the House Armed Services Committee. And if I'm fortunate to be there, boy, I look forward to the day when I can look across at the chairman or the Secretary of Defense and say, I don't think so. I've seen the sausage and how it gets made. I've been in those Pentagon meetings, and they're not going to pull the wool over my eyes. One, because sometimes people are afraid of having military guys as members of Congress because maybe they kneel to the brass. But for me, it's just the opposite. I've seen the chaos, and I have personal skin in the game. So there's no one really better suited than someone who wants to make sure that our military is worthy of the sacrifice of my daughter and her generation that are coming into it.
Was Chris Stewart on that board? I know Chris Stewart was on Homeland Security, I believe.
I think he was on Appropriations, which was his big one. Appropriations is probably.
But he was on one where he had national secrets that came from Intel. That's what it was. I think it helps to have someone with security clearance for one to be on that board, but also someone with skin in the game, of course. And I love the idea of patriots going into government, especially when they've sacrificed. They signed a blank check to America, and usually most of the veterans I know, they've lived a life of service in some way, and they've lived by example. And it's nice to see them serve in an office where they are for the people. It's just, I don't know what happens to people in DC. I don't know if it's the water or what that changes people. They'll go there, they'll fight, and then all of a sudden they're wrapped into the DEI, or they're looking to retire and become lobbyists, or I don't know what happens in DC, but it gets upsetting.
It feels like in our military right now, general officers are politicians. They kind of have to be, just because of the level they're at. I feel like our field grade and below are still, and this has been commented, I'm not the first to comment this, is commented everywhere. They're still running in that grain of really just traditionally conservative American, I guess is the word to use. But I think the general officers, I think Obama's purge that he did, what was it, in 2014, where he got rid of over 100 field grade majors and light colonels and full birds. Yeah, I think it was 149. He washed them out on political reasons.
Well, and I think Biden has just done the same thing.
I think we're feeling that now
after the mandates and the COVID vaccine.
Because when you move those colonels out, those colonels yesterday are today's generals.
Yeah.
And if you wash those out for political reasons, you empty out a political dichotomy you would hope for. You'd hope your nation to be reflected in your military leadership.
Yeah.
And I think we're paying for that now. We're seeing it. And I don't mean to disparage Milley, but the things he said right as Trump was leaving and Biden got in were concerning to me. Just knowing, one, what it'll do to, I mean, we've seen this woke agenda destroy our public education system and our higher education system.
A lot of business.
Do I want to see it destroy our military? Yeah.
Well, and this is something I have. When you watch someone addressing the Air Force and a whole bunch of cadets, and they're obviously a man in a dress, I ask myself, like, are we living in a clown world? How are all of these smart patriots who have also signed that blank check to America, how these leaders are the ones guiding them, not only guiding them, but patronizing them for not showing more respect to the skirt of a man who's addressing them. And that's going to get people to hate me. And I don't hate trans people. I love them. I want trans people to have whatever in life they need. And usually I think that good therapy, if you don't like the body you're in, you need to figure out why. But I hate that it's turned into an accepted thing. Not only that, but it's deep in the military. And under Clinton, it was don't ask, don't tell, just regarding sexual status. And I think even that wasn't a terrible thing, because it wasn't about your sexuality. It wasn't about your gender. It's who can do the job and who can have each other's back and who can they count on when the rest of us are running for the hills. Who's standing in that line? Who cares what your sexuality is, what your gender is? Yeah. And it's just gone from don't ask, don't tell to, hey, go ahead and tell, go ahead and ask, to you respect the skirt and I still have an Adam's apple, but you're going to respect me because I am your female officer. What do you think? I mean, I don't know what you can do about this in Congress. You tell us, what could someone with your rank, with your experience, and I don't know, I don't know how much time you have, but I want to dive deep into, what your experience is, how you could bring it into Congress, because you're one of 485 people roughly. And so one of 4 in Utah.
Yeah.
And I mean, in Utah, I don't know what's going on with our Congress. I mean, they're not always in agreement, right? Even they don't vote the same. But representing rural Utah, I expect whoever wins that seat better be there to represent rural Utah and not Salt Lake City as a whole. We still have a small community where we still have kids going to go to the military when they graduate and do it with pride. But here we are Gen Xers going, wait a second, is this the commander-in-chief I want my child to serve under? Is this the policy I want them to learn under? Do I want my kid to hate themselves because they're white? Do I want my child to have to go to DEI and then get skipped over for any promotion because they are a Christian male?
Yeah.
Or, just that's a lot. That's a whole lot for me to say. And Jared's probably going to run the rest of the interview because he probably has the right questions to ask. But these are some things going through my mind of who our next leader should be and what they should do. So I'm curious, your thoughts.
Yeah. What's your idea on how would you manage? We saw Congress over the last 2 months have a couple opportunities to ask questions to different, military leadership. I mean, a couple of sad ones to see the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps kind of get rolled up by a congressperson, rightfully, but the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, which when I was in, I met the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps down in Gitmo, and at the time, he was a very impressive dude, and he was what you pictured. When he talked, it sounded like gravel in a cement truck. But to see this occurring a lot is concerning. So as a congressperson, on to you. Let's let you talk.
One more thing. Fred Swain. Hi, Fred. Thank you for tuning in today. And everyone else who is watching. Fred says, and they pay for the ongoing hormone prescriptions. And that's absolutely right. Not only do they do the surgery, that surgery requires constant prescription drug medicine that we don't even know how it'll affect the brain. We don't know how it affects the body. Because there's not long-term studies on many. And so that's a really great point. And that's the taxpayer dollars. When we say the military pays for it, we're talking about you and me that pay for the military because, that's who funds it.
Yeah. There's one other addition to that before I answer the big questions. Under the Biden administration, the military also enables travel for abortions. So if you're in the Department of Defense, you want an abortion, it's not available in the state where you're stationed, then they'll pay for you to go get an abortion and travel back and forth. So essentially, taxpayer dollars are enabling abortions. And in Utah, that's not what we stand for. And that's not what we should fight for. And so for me, just to answer, I think, to try and unpack all of that, it boils down to leadership. And that's in my race, this is the 2nd District congressional seat race. That's a key factor we have to look at. Who do you want on that wall fighting for our district? Who do you want tackling these issues that ultimately trickle down and have positive or negative effects on our water, on our land? There's so many national level issues we have to attack that affect us here locally as well. But on the military piece, as long as we have leadership that view the military as a social experiment and not a war fighting machine, then we're going to have these issues. And how I can impact that, it always comes back to funding. Congress can have an impact on that. One member of Congress can. I can find that thread and start pulling it on that DEI program or on the hormone prescription program and pull that thread. And once you start jerking on the funding thread, then people listen and people want to be attentive. They want to be accountable to the member of Congress. And so similar with veterans care. I mean, I'm a senior colonel and I get the runaround from the VA. I can't imagine, our junior service members. And so those are fights that I look forward to having, as a member of Congress.
Trump was taking on the VA when he came in. And I remember Chris Stewart was a very big proponent of fixing the VA. And he said, I remember him saying, Utah's got one of the best. And that's not saying a ton, because the VA, my father died, unfortunately, of a glioblastoma. And I don't blame the VA, but I think a lot of time was driven that they should have done more focused care when they realized what they were doing wasn't working and come back in 6 weeks. That didn't fly. Yeah. And he had to finally go to a private doctor. And he was a huge fan of Trump's. And Trump, in fact, allowed veterans to start seeing private doctors and send the bill to the United States government because the VA is broken. And again, it's broken because of bureaucrats, and it's broken because there's no incentive to fix broken in the U.S. government. So if I hope we get Trump back in office, I'm putting everyone on blast. As a Republican, I'm putting everyone on blast. If Trump gets back in that office and I see one of our senators, one of our congressmen, one of any of our electeds go against his good policy, then I will create my own jihad and make sure they are fired. Because we can't have a repeat of 2016 and 2017. And we cannot, America was feared like under Reagan. It wasn't that everyone was terrified of us per se, but they didn't want to mess around and find out. Yeah. And I think under Trump, there was a lot of that. He's this crazy cowboy. We don't know what he's going to do. If he's walking into North Korea, no one else had done that. He'd brokered deals in the Middle East, peace in the Middle East. Are you kidding me? And no one had ever done that. And he didn't start a war. In fact, he tried to get one finished. I want someone in office that's going to guarantee they will support good policy. If it's good policy, I don't want tyrants. I want him to be a tyrant. I don't think Trump is a god by any means, or I don't also think he's a dictator either. I think he's got extraordinary ideas that are America First principles. And I hope that other congressmen with the power of the purse will not only audit what's going to our military funding, but they're going to audit what goes to the FBI. They're going to audit what goes to the CIA, production, and basically profit and loss. We got to see where the money to Ukraine has gone. How are we funding such a losing battle?
We know where that's going.
Why are we? It looks like laundry. It looks like money laundering.
50% for the old man, for the big guy, and then you've got to peel off. Then you've got Act Blue's got to get its cut, and then.
Do you think it's any coincidence the current SecDef used to be on Raytheon's board?
We keep hitting that, don't we?
Yeah.
It seems like we have a revolving door on this stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, we saw that with our own. Chris Stewart was I'm not here to disparage, but just the reality is, I mean, 3 days after his last day in Congress, he opened up Skyline Capital. You can Google that. Washington, D.C. government consulting firm. It's got the address on K Street. His former chief of staff is now the vice president, and his former general counsel is now the member of Congress. So if you don't think the gravy train is trying to protect itself, we've got
that breaks
stop that.
My heart as someone who adores Chris Stewart, as somebody that has worked highly and closely with Chris Stewart.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
That news broke my heart because he said he stepped down for, family reasons.
Yeah.
And I respected that.
Me too.
I was devastated for him, and I respect that so much. But when this news came out and it was said to me, I think, was it on the show that someone actually said, don't you know that Chris Stewart and I was like ready to go to war? But they weren't wrong. I'm
a pro lobbyist guy because I think that's one way to gather and get a message up, like the NRA, even though the NRA is dog crap and it never does anything for gun owners. The gun owners of America, like the gun owners of America, that is a lobby group that they fight to stop the ATF from kicking your door down and throwing you in jail because you bought a Red Ryder BB gun 8 years ago and it rusted out in the backyard, whatever the ATF is dreaming up. But it does strike me as suspicious when someone leaves Congress and turns around and starts one up
before their term is up.
3 days after they leave Congress too. Yeah. I mean, all of that was in play before, but we're not here to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what was good. Yeah.
So let's read a couple of comments.
Yeah.
Fred says, hi, we've got Amali May on with us also. And she says, she's still learning. Fred says, thank you for your service, Mr. Jenkins. I decided to vote for you weeks ago. Were you at our Lincoln Day dinner?
I had one of my teammates was there, but
I saw your signs.
I've been to Tooele twice. We've done 2 town halls there. I've personally been there twice, and we'll be back again.
Yeah, I want you to come back again where the party sponsors it, and we have you come out with a Meet the Candidates evening. Great. And I'll invite all state candidates out, and hopefully we'll get our state delegates in one place. And if not, I'll do a town hall live with you on Zoom, and then we'll have all the state delegates invited to that.
Perfect.
And I did advertise your town hall that you had on Saturday. Anytime you're out in Tooele, I invite you to please let me know.
Will do. And
I will make sure that we get the word out. But also, I'd like you to meet with Tim Gilley, our local editor for our paper, and have an interview done with him. He's promised me any candidate that comes to the county, he'll sit down and do a piece on, and he's the most fair reporter. We've got ourselves a great little town here.
See, an example of leadership right there. Thank you. You create opportunities for good things to happen. So
and we want everyone to know you. We want everyone to know Celeste. We want to know who you are, what you're going to do. And that way you recognize us when we come calling when you don't do what you're supposed to, or we can praise when you do what you're supposed to, and we can have a working relationship. I do have to say, in Chris Stewart's defense, he was out here all the time as our congressman, and he was highly approachable. So he took our phone calls. I mean, my phone calls from the party. He would always come and do town halls, updates, and he'd tell us what he legally could. But I had him come out to FOP for the Toronto Order of Police conferences my father was hosting, and he was very highly engaged. And so Celeste has been doing the same. I feel like she's been out here so much, and it's so nice. And we have learned to expect that from Congress, as I hope that you will.
Please don't expect anything less. And if it is, then fire me. I mean, this is a job interview, and I work for you. So that's my perspective for sure.
It's a good statement right there. Yeah. That is a good one. Imagine, just if you will, everyone, just enter dream world with me. If the whole population, whether you're Democrat or Republican, went for maybe 3 or 4 cycles, maybe a full 8 years of just washing out all the incumbents, might that cause Congress and the Senate to start paying attention to what people in their home districts say?
100%. Yeah.
Then maybe the the bureaucrats would take over, the unelected. I don't know. But anyways,
I on that note, I'd like to know, I mean, there's a lot of talk going on right now in Congress regarding the purse. And I'd like to know your thoughts on spending right off the bat. And I don't want to hear just we're done with spending.
good,
I want
you're
to
hitting
hear
his bullet points.
I want to hear your plan to actually bring these purse strings in. And gosh, I'm looking at your website. That doesn't even look like you.
Yeah,
with
well,
the beard?
before you answer that, what group were you with?
I was with the 7th Special Forces Group.
Okay.
When they were at Fort Bragg.
Okay. Oh, out of Bragg. So
Yeah.
spit shine Special Forces even.
Yeah. Well, my
Yeah.
family was there. I was downrange for about 3 years, off and on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How rough was that getting deployed? Because I know you guys got deployed different than the regular Army, but more often.
Yeah.
And my brother was at Fort Bragg, and they talk about how rough it was to go overseas and then come back. And he said one of the hard parts was getting back to the conformity of Fort Bragg, or now I guess it's Fort Freedom or Fort Liberty or
Liberty,
something, which we can go into that, for all you lefty nut jobs, when they named all those Southern installations after Confederate generals, it was a poke in the eye to the South. It wasn't to honor them. You guys need to understand it. But anyways, but he said it was hard to get back into the spit and polish that Fort Bragg demands. Fort Bragg that's where the Army goes to get tested, Yeah. Do you have are your boots shiny enough? Are airplanes having to shade under their eyeballs as they fly over because of all the shine?
Is Fort Bragg in Texas?
No.
It's in North Carolina.
North Carolina. No, Fort Hood is in Texas. Fort Hood is the exact opposite. That's where the Army goes to test whether the MP Corps can investigate crimes.
Yeah, they have
as the guest,
sad but true.
Right.
will you tell us your plan as far as the purse strings and how far are you willing to take it? Are you willing to defund agencies if they don't comply? I mean, we've got bureaucrats running this country right now, bureaucrats that outlive you, me, presidents, senators. I mean, they're always there. And when they're called upon in front of Senate or Congress, they don't have the notes. They're required to answer questions and they shuffle, and it looks like political theater. And I know most everyone within the sound of my voice is so sick of the norm, and we're sick of the political theater. We want to see action. We're tired of playing defense as Republicans all the time. Defense, defense, defense. And yet we also are ready to shake it up and let's see what happens if we stop being ignored by our government. As Jared said, we have to make an impact. And I'm wondering, what impact are you going to make?
Yeah. So when I approach any vote or decision on your behalf, there will be 3 lenses that I'll be looking through. One is limiting government. Am I voting to grow government or limit it? And I better not be voting to grow it, because if I am, then I better be subtracting from somewhere else. And an example of that is especially in the Pentagon, if the procurement system is just completely broken. It takes us 20 years to build a new airplane. So rather than fix the procurement process or defund it, they simply put a Band-Aid on it and create now a rapid agency or an innovative department. And they put 4 or 5 Band-Aids on what was ultimately broken down below.
They just call it a different name.
And they'll stand up.
Or they start a whole new.
Do doors fly off when you're in midair, like they are with the Boeing?
Yeah,
that's hilarious. So you got to check. You got to check up the chain of command of different bureaucracies and come back down. Good heck.
So for me, I'll be asking myself if I'm casting a vote to grow anything or create something new, my first reaction is going to be, well, what isn't working, and how much are we funding it? Because let's either fix that or let's defund it before we grow anything new. So limiting government will be top of mind. Fiscal responsibility, fiscal conservatism. Am I voting to spend new money, which we don't have? So I better not be voting that way. But if I'm being asked to vote to spend new money, it's going to be at the cost of something else. So, for example, we have 80,000 plus new IRS agents.
Right.
If we're going to
Armed
spend
IRS agents.
yeah. So there has to be what's called a pay-go. If I'm paying for this to go, then there has to be something else that's paying the bill for the new thing to be stood up. There can't just be new. There has to be subtraction and limiting before we ever build or spend new. So those would be two things that would be in my mind as I'm considering any vote. And then the third one is national security. Am I voting? Is this vote going to jeopardize or weaken our national security in any way? Then I better be stepping back and asking myself, what am I doing? So those would be three ways that I would be looking at. How am I going to vote? How am I going to limit spending? And you hit on something that I want to be my calling card. I've been in the 9 years I spent in Washington, D.C. as a Green Beret liaison, working in Congress, working in the Pentagon. I went to a ton of Capitol Hill hearings. And the common thing that you hit on is when somebody gets asked a tough question, they undoubtedly say, oh, Congressman, I'll have to take that for the record and we'll get back to you. And everybody says, yeah, that sounds good.
And in my home, I'm watching going, I all of a sudden turn into Judge Judy and say, well, where did you think you were coming today?
Yeah.
The beach?
Yeah. So those answers never see the light of day. So for me, as a member of Congress, if I'm sitting and the Secretary of Defense gives me an answer like that, or anybody that's accountable to you, my constituent, and they say, oh, we'll take that for the record, then my response will be, great. Where are you going to be for breakfast tomorrow? Where are you going to be for lunch tomorrow? Those 10,000 people that work for you, they can help you get that answer and we'll get it tomorrow. Oh, you're not available tomorrow? I'm just going to drive.
Well, why don't you use that little device that everybody has and send a text to the person who knows so that we can get this answer now for the people.
For sure. So I'm going to be speaking with the fury of the 800,000 from our district and not going to sit until we get the answers we're asking for, because I've seen it. I've seen that game played and I'm not going to play it.
So you've mentioned on your website, you mentioned a couple of different things, and I'm just going to cover some of those bullet points and let you dig in on them for the people.
Yeah.
Defense of Second Amendment. And I want to go with overall defense of the Bill of Rights. What's your thoughts on this new TikTok ban that came down?
Yeah. So for me, my Congress our founders intended Congress to be a body of compromise, but that compromise only happens under the umbrella of the Constitution. So for me, I imagine I'm standing under an umbrella and I'm standing on the Constitution, and I'll negotiate all day long under that umbrella. But if you're pulling me out and I've got a foot now outside and I'm tap dancing outside, then I'm wrong and I got to get back. And so any vote, any bill that has a poison pill attached to it that compromises on our constitutional rights, say the Fourth Amendment, there's an example back in December where my opponent cast a vote in favor of the military authorization bill, but it had a critical poison pill attached that allowed the government to continue to spy on us. And rather than say no, like Senator Lee did, she was a rubber stamp and passed it on and said, hey, I'm for the military and we'll fix that later. No, that's not okay. Congress has to do its job. We have to defend our Bill of Rights. And so on the TikTok debate and what the House did, I sit back and I think, you don't need to convince me or anyone that TikTok is bad. China is bad. I don't have it on my phone. That's not the debate. The debate is, what are we doing with our data and who's taking it? And for me, I saw the result 2 days ago as the cure that the House came up with is worse than the disease. They're trying to break the linkage between China and TikTok, which is a problem we need to tackle, but we don't do it at the expense of our First Amendment rights. They essentially gave the president broad powers
over the whole internet.
Yeah, at his discretion. I mean, what's to say? We should pause when we see the president of the United States say, "I'll pass it as soon as it gets to my desk." But he doesn't even know what's going to get to his desk.
You have to read the bill. You have to vote for the bill to know what's in it. That type of mentality.
The Senate still has to take it up. So it's not even halfway done yet.
That is very true. I mean, It is scary when you think about it, because it does remind me of someone said this joke, but they said our government said, we don't want you spying on the people that we want to spy on.
Well, right now, our data is the most valuable resource in the world. Your data is worth everything.
Yeah.
So I hear, they want to ban TikTok. I don't like the word ban. I mean, I'm an American citizen. I choose not to have TikTok. I also choose not to be on Instagram that often, but my data is not even mine. I would love a bill that says private companies have to pay you if they use your data. That's what I would like. So just like a royalty, I get a check every time somebody uses my data to sell on an email. Could you imagine? The American people, oh, hell, they'd be a lot more careful.
What would our
with what
economy
they did with
look
your,
like? That'd be
with
a
your
wild.
data.
Like a patent. I mean, your idea is patented. It's protected.
It's
if someone
you.
else uses it, you get
It's
the
your
royalties.
likeness.
Yeah.
It's your
That's a great idea.
private information. Why is there not a bill out there that pays everyone for the data they're collecting? And Google would have to pay.
You know
because
why?
Lobbyists in DC have made sure there's never going to be one.
The only people that won this week, and now as the Senate takes it up for debate, the only people that will win there are the lobbyists for TikTok and Facebook.
Now,
and Meta.
If China's using data to infiltrate our young people and what they say, and then the hypocrisy of government employees can't use data or use TikTok, but the president can use TikTok for a Super Bowl ad. It's constant hypocrisy from the elites.
Yes.
Good for thee, but not for me.
Yes.
And to get to a couple of these, because I don't want to miss O'Malley says we need to shrink the government. Dean Adams is watching. Hi, Dean. She wants to know if you listen to Jesse Kelly. Do you follow Michael Yon? And who would you like to see as governor?
Yeah, I don't know.
Jesse Kelly's a podcaster. Michael Yon, interesting guy. He is an ex-Green Beret as well, who's now a journalist who he's known for doing a lot of work in Japan, Hong Kong, China-related work, but lately he's been hanging out down at the Darien Gap in Panama, paying attention to the crossings that are coming across there and reporting on
Y-O-N, Michael Yon.
Yeah. Okay.
And Fred says exceptional 3-lens process. And O'Malley says, I think we're well past the infringement of the Bill of Rights, slippery slope, egregious. And I also want to know about this damn Patriot Act. And it was Republicans who brought it in, and it was all brought in under fear. And Obama said it was a joke, and it was against our civil rights, and it was terrible till he got in, and then he expanded it into the huge. I mean, we have the facility, where the NSA is spying on Americans, and now it's even getting more intrusive into our private lives. I mean, I play on Activision. I play Call of Duty, and right there before you start playing, Activision says, we are monitoring every one of your private chats. You will be suspended or you will be kicked off of the platform if you do this, and this. You can't appeal it and you can't fight it. So if someone accuses you of something, you pretty much just lost the hundreds of dollars you spent over the years in this site. And I get that. That's a private business. But the software to be able to listen in, I mean, they're not intrusive. What about the Fourth Amendment? I mean, our government can legally break the Fourth Amendment every day.
And they do. Yeah. Senator Lee called that out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even in potential terrorism now. They've got air marshals have been following around people that were in DC in January. They weren't even at the Capitol. They were probably visiting wherever in DC, getting followed around by our air marshals. And meanwhile, the people who protect our federal buildings are catering to the immigrants that are at the border. And yet, where's our national security? And why are you so focused on domestic terrorism when there's real terrorism outside those walls just flooding in?
Yes. Yeah. Where do you want me to begin?
I want you to fix it. So fix it. How do we fix it?
And the choice our constituents have is leadership, judgment, and accountability. Who are you looking to that can bring that to represent our second district? Who's going to fight for you as a patriot and a warrior on not only national level issues, but for our water and our land? You can bet I'm going to fight for that. You can bet I'm going to go to the BLM and jerk their funding and get their attention and make sure they're not.
He said Bureau of Land Management, folks, just so that you don't get confused and tomorrow you have a picketing line out in front of your house.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to, I know Celeste has got the specialty when it comes to environmental, and she's fought for cities like St. George and for Twilla County, and she was doing that well before. She does have that specialty for rural communities and the federal lands and water rights and things like that. Where do you see yourself as far as federal lands as an issue for District 2? And all of us, I mean, our county is 88% owned by the federal government.
Yeah.
So we have to grow up, not out. And we aren't paid fairly for the land. It's PILT, which is not promised. It's given to us like a gift that we've earned somehow, or they may not give it to us. It could be pulled. That's payment in lieu of taxes for anyone that doesn't know that. And it's cents, pennies on the dollar. Cities like Wendover, Utah they're blocked in by BLM land. They cannot expand. Families have to separate. Their own kids can't live and work where they grow up, unless they live in the Nevada side. And even then, it's still pretty dense what's available over there. So where do you see you could help as far as for our federal lands?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because that is a key question. Look, there will be no daylight between me and the work that's already been done. Of course, I'm going to fight for our water and our land. Of course, I'm going to do that. There's no question that will happen. The question is, who can you trust to do it? Who has that leadership, that expertise, that accountability, the ability to actually fight at the federal level to keep the Bureau of Land Management and other federal overlords out of our backyard? So, for example, we were in Kanab just a couple weeks ago, and two of the county commissioners were in town, and they were talking to us about how the BLM had come in and carved out a new wilderness study area, WSA. And that county had no input into that. They were now all of a sudden grown. They were all just now fenced off, lost access, lost control. So for me, I ask, if we are doing such great work battling for our land and water, why is this still happening at the federal level?
Why are we doing studies on how Mormon beetles mate and then cannibalize? Like, why are shrimp on a treadmill? Why are we funding this crap?
Yeah.
Why are we funding this crap?
So I go back to your question. If she has already been working on this for years, why is it still a problem? Why are we still getting our lunch taken by the federal government? I respect the results that have happened, but we've got to do better. And you've got to ask yourself, where's the leadership been on this issue? What kind of leadership do you want going forward? Who's going to be that fighter, that warrior that's going to be the final barrier between the federal government and you? Who's going to make sure that the county commissioners have the decision space they need to do what's best for us? That's not the federal government. And you need a warrior, you need a fighter who can fight that fight and keep them out of our backyard.
Well, to be fair, Celeste has only been in office for 4 months, 5 months.
But she's had 4 years of working on this as well before.
Would you say then that Chris Stewart did not fight? I mean, do you see that you could do a better job than Chris Stewart did?
No, I'm not besmirching his work at all. I'm sure there were victories along the way. I've seen the good that has come from that. I'm just saying there's going to be no daylight from the success we've had before.
I can appreciate that. I also know that it's hard when it's one person and the county in Salt Lake and the representative in Summit, all different issues. Water is something we all have. It's Utah, we're the desert, but federal lands, Utah, were owned by the federal government, and west or eastern states can't even fathom it. They can't fathom what it's like. I mean, maybe 3% of some states, but we're out here in the West and we're 80, I think overall 82% federal government. And when we talk about getting our lands back, a lot of people get in their heads that we're going to have oil rigs on every single, in canyon lands.
Just where there's oil, people.
Well,
and even there, they have directional drilling that can get to it. Yeah.
In directional drilling, my brother's a driller. He can go in, drill a place, and he can leave, and you never know they're there. And there's fracking, and we need refineries here, and we also need to be able to refine oil and actually sell oil out of the United States, bring that home, sell it outside the United States. But the United States, the American people should benefit off of that. We should get the cheapest gas in the world because we should have it. I'm not saying don't drill on our federal lands. You don't have to drill in canyon lands or in these special
unless there's
parks. Oil. But even then, go under it.
It's pretty basic.
But a lot of people don't know how vast Tooele County's ground is. We're the second largest county in the state. It is so much BLM land, and we've got businesses out there. We should be putting cities out there.
And the Kennecott water problem, there's fights that need to be made there as well.
Those are fights that have been going on though for 2 decades.
I don't know if that's a fight that can be managed much on the federal level, but something that is federal is I'm a strong proponent of the 10th Amendment. And it feels like by the absorption of all of the sovereign duties by the federal government has put us at a precipitous place where we could collapse as a nation. And I think had the 10th Amendment been observed over this last 250 years, you might have states that fail, but those can be absorbed by a greater union. But if the whole nation fails, I need to go buy an ATV tire and fit it as a shoulder pad and get a dune buggy and,
What about the water rights when we add Utah, Arizona, California, Nevada, where a lot of our water is coming out of Utah, but we're not claiming all of it. California gets their taste.
Are
Nevada
those federal?
Theirs. Yeah. Is that a federal issue or is that a state's issue?
It's a little bit of both. The federal representative can work to keep the BLM in check, so that they're not overreaching or creating restrictions that our local leaders can no longer work reasonably within. And then I can work also with my counterparts, Arizona, California, making sure to keep them in check so that they look outward instead of upward to us. And I can support projects like here in St. George. The Water Conservancy District manager, they're focusing on all the water that's cleaned, and rather than just sending it down the Virgin River to California, let's put it in a new reservoir. Let's hold it here and have that water reuse.
Why doesn't California build reservoirs, especially in the rainiest season in forever? They count on Utah for water, and they're taking
it's
our
for
rights.
Communism. We can't do that for communism.
They've got this big blue thing to their west called the ocean. Why don't they start looking that way? Yeah. It's
true. If you're worried about water levels going up, then why aren't you, getting salt out of there and using the ocean? It's insane. And all of this is insane. And O'Malley said, this is probably a reflection of a lot of people right now. I'm sorry, but I have a hard time believing we can save the Titanic, and I have a hard time believing we will even have an election. It's not that I won't continue to do as much as I can, but we're in a serious trouble in this country, and we're in late stage Rome. And I think that Jared is in that same mindset. It's like a black pill where we're going to just see how this crumbles, because we've got ourselves into such a pickle, and we've made kings out of politicians. And a lot of us, are working as hard as we can to try to get good people in there, hold them accountable. But so many people are just going to sit back and watch it burn, because it's going to take, if COVID didn't bring down the silent majority to make them actually mad enough to stand up, and the BLM riots didn't do it, and the election of 2020 didn't do it, or COVID especially, What is it going to take to wake America up and take their country back?
Well, let me share maybe a little story with you. I was at a town hall in Hurricane a couple weeks ago, and a woman was sharing similar frustration, and she literally asked me, why are you even in this? Where do you get hope from? Like, what gives you hope that you can even do any good? She was just genuinely like looking out for me. She's like, please don't do this to yourself. Like, what gives you hope?
Yeah.
Why would you want to do this? And she kept saying hope, and it triggered me, but in a good way, because it reminds me of my own daughter, our youngest daughter, Olivia. She was born 3 weeks before I went to Afghanistan for a year.
Wow.
And we knew, that she'd be born and I was going to leave. And so we named her Olivia Hope Jenkins in the hope that I would return, that I would be able to be her father, that I would survive that deployment, that combat deployment. And I did. And now 20 years later, she's now wearing the uniform. And when I am asked what gives me hope, well, one, I have my own literal hope in my family, my daughter, but the generation that she represents, she's one of about 900 cadets. And then across our nation, there's hope in that generation that's already raised their hand to support and defend our Constitution. And so for me, I want to fight so that they have leadership, that they have policy, they have funding, they have the resources they need that's worthy of their sacrifice. And so that's a little piece of why I'm in this race, and where I draw hope that ultimately in God we trust. In God we trust. We have to put our faith in what we put our hands over our heart and say. And that's what's going to carry me forward to hopefully earn your vote and be working for you.
Okay, that makes me emotional.
Yeah.
Because
Holly's going to have to take a minute. Okay, we've had someone ask, we have a lot of people out this way that aren't pleased with Dan Crenshaw. If you're a gun rights advocate, Dan Crenshaw is Voldemort. And Dan Crenshaw isn't an overall negative on everything.
Oh, but he did the switch.
But he is, he didn't do the switch. He is a Bush era Republican. He's
establishment.
He's a put America boots on every ground Republican. And there's a lot to be said about that. The United States, being a strong force in the world, has provided the world with this sense of security it's had for commerce for the last 40 years. I mean, essentially since about the time World War II ended, it really became, the world changed. The first time in known history that you had this ability to have world commerce at a safe level, where there wasn't state-sponsored piracy and all that. And we are drawing back from that. And I think we're drawing back from that because the people don't want to continue to financially support that when the rest of the world benefits and then calls us evil for it.
Yeah.
Which is also understandable. But Dan Crenshaw has supported a lot of big government restrictive plans. Red flag laws getting pushed through is the biggest one that comes to mind.
He's in Texas, right?
Yeah.
He pushed national red flag laws.
Oh, no. I just mean that's where he's out of, which is even more of a slap in the face to Texans, because
Texas is not the gun-loving place they like to claim. We had it first.
The county that he won is, and that's why, it was a shock. It's like he went to D.C. with one impression, and why it made such national attention when he started to talk red flag laws. Because my biggest argument, even Chris Stewart brought it up to a town hall here in Davis, because Davis County was very blue. And he said, and they wanted red flag laws. It was after a shooting. And he said, well, I'm willing to consider it. And I said to him, Chris, you can't imagine. Have you never been in a bad relationship? Have you never had anybody accuse you of something that's not true or false, that could hurt you because they hate you?
Yeah.
Red flag laws have so much opening for corruption, where an ex-girlfriend can get angry and accuse until someone's been tried and actually given a jury. And, if they're violent, of course we want it to take their guns. If they're going to hurt themselves and they consent to hold their guns, or whatever, that's a different story. But it doesn't feel like those are the people who are causing problems with their guns. The people causing problems don't usually tell anybody, and they have mental illness, which needs to be addressed. And in my opinion, mental illness is the biggest problem facing Americans right now. And it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Now we're sitting down with people who are mentally ill and we're praising them for it. We're encouraging it. It's joined our military. It has in every branch of government. It's in everybody's workplace, and it's in every kid's school. And it's gotten out of control. And I wanted to say what made me emotional about what you just said is it's really, really hard in this day and age to get people to have hope, because what we see every single day is political theater, and we are dismissed. We are the unwashed masses who work our butts off from morning till night to be taxed from the second we are old enough to have a job to the well after we're into the ground. And people like you and people like my father and Jared, who served the country, are getting the shaft. They are getting mediocre health care. They are homeless. They are starving in this economy, and we aren't even taking care of them, let alone life has no value in this new generation. They're learning that a child in the womb is nothing but a clump of sails, could turn into a Volkswagen for all we know if you let it cook, and that our elderly are not valuable. And it's just so frustrating, because how do you defend it and try to give hope to people? And for my job, I have to, because if what I'm doing means nothing and there's no point in it, then I'm sacrificing so much for so little. So I appreciate the way you describe that, because my why is my children and my parents and what they taught me. And I want a good future for my parents, and I want my children to be good stewards of this nation and to be patriotic just as much as I want my neighbor and even people that are Democrats or independents or whoever. I want God back in this country, and I want it to be unapologetic that we are doing this because it's the right thing to do, and not because we're greedy bastards who gain something. And so I appreciate that. I'm never emotional. I don't know if I've ever been emotional on the show. But
you mentioned your daughter in West Point, and that's her soft spot.
Yeah,
I dig it. So it says one of your priority bullet points is the Second Amendment. So how fast would you push to get rid of the NFA for me, please?
NFA.
National Firearms Act.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I need to get smarter on that. So tell me what
the NFA. The NFA was written after the St. Valentine's Day massacre, where the guys got shot in the alley by Thompsons. Anyways, what it did is it's the act that restricts type of weapons you can own and all that. It's kind of a joke point, but I really want you to get rid of it.
Yeah,
I do, because that is what the ATF leans back on when they want to change a law. They'll read that NFA and say, where can we interpret this different than we did last week?
But this is what pisses me off, because you're not wrong, but the ATF has no business writing laws.
Yeah.
They don't write them. They just
interpreting. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
They are bureaucrats. They're not elected. There is one body that is to do those laws, and people in agencies like the ATF, FBI, they write their own, and then they turn Americans into felons overnight by these. Yeah. And yet we're supposed to go, oh, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, I haven't mentioned guillotines yet on the show. We're an hour and 10 minutes into it.
Hour and 10 minutes in. He mentions a guillotine in every episode. It's like,
I can have a little
take them out.
Right out front.
I have a little toy guillotine I even play with sometimes. But anyways, no, Second Amendment, like, what's your stance on that? What would you I mean, let's go with the reality we live in right now, not Jared's dreamland. What would you go there and fight for Second Amendment wise right now?
So just getting back to Dan Crenshaw, I want to address that. So
yes.
An important difference to know there right off the bat. He's a Navy SEAL. I'm a Green Beret. That's enough said.
Enough said.
When there's a spotlight anywhere in the room, those Navy SEALs will go to the spotlight.
You mean you haven't wrote a book about your latrine duty in 03 yet?
Did you do that?
No, that's inside Army Navy jokes.
Yes.
The Navy, if a Navy SEAL gets sent to the NEX to buy, toilet paper for their bunkhouse, he writes a book about it. The Green Beret a Green Beret will go and halo jump onto enemy territory, come home, and shut the F up. Yes. And that's the difference.
Hey, there was a movie called Green Beret.
Sure.
But it was John Wayne.
Yeah, it was John Wayne, and it was written.
Missed John Wayne.
And it was written. The original story was written by a journalist who went through jungle warfare school during Vietnam. He was invited there by a colonel in the Green Berets he was friends with, and the colonel said, "You want to come see what I do?" And invite him there. And up until I want to say 88, that journalist was the oldest person to ever pass jump school.
No kidding. He
It's
passed.
just interesting, weird history.
Good trivia. But
He was a famous journalist.
So
I think the same guy, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
He knows way too much about history. So
but go on.
He loves history.
So just to put a bow on the Dan Crenshaw piece, he was the last member of Congress that spoke on the TikTok ban. He was the one that closed out the debate, and he basically told everyone, if you don't pass this, then you're supporting China. And I just shook my head and said, pump the brakes, brother. Why don't we worry about our First Amendment first?
Yeah. It's a tough argument, right? It is, because China it is an abusive spyware that China has.
It is. Yeah, we're not debating that.
But we don't know what spyware is involved in Google or Facebook or any of these others.
We'll be getting to Google in a minute. Don't you dare bring that out yet, because I want to drop that bomb on her. But what I want to say is, do we want to encroach on people's First Amendment? That's a First Amendment done. They're giving up their information voluntarily.
Right.
Do we want to encroach on their ability to do that?
Or their ability to not do it. I mean, it's still free to own TikTok.
And that's where I'm at. And aside from the law giving the president powers to do anything else, I lean towards an absolutist on the First Amendment. I think it's the most important one.
Yeah. And one key thing to remember in this debate is we don't defeat China by acting like China.
Amen.
That's why we're different. That's why we're different. We don't take detainees and do, we're Americans for a reason. And when the government says national emergency, we got to hurry and do this. We need more power, special powers, trust us. Then we should pump the brakes and say, I don't think so. And that's what happened with this that we saw. Everyone rushed to, how come it all of a sudden came to a head magically? It's national. And the president says, I'll sign it. Well, like Senator Lee said, he said, when we see the government claim national emergency, need more powers, then we should all be suspect.
We should be terrified because we saw our economy get destroyed when it was 15 days. What was that? 3 years ago? 4 years ago today.
Spread, yeah. Wow,
15 years. Or 15 days became years.
Yeah.
And though Trump wanted to open at every turn, Fauci was stabbing him in the back. His own people were stabbing him in the back. He was getting terrible information and watched his economy, just a beautiful economy, start to go down the tubes. And now we've got the left who gets to argue that they have the best economy ever and all these jobs they've created. And we've got the lowest unemployment rate. And I'm like, you guys started from negative and now you're boosting.
You're almost back to zero.
Yeah, you're almost back to, inflation is down.
Yeah.
Inflation that you caused is down, but it's still not where it was before you. I mean, we're living in a clown world. and you want to go up to the circus and you want to juggle and ride the unicycle with these clowns. And I'm very impressed, but I'm also thinking you've got to be insane. Your wife has got to think you are insane. It's probably more scary to do this than it is to go on a tour.
All great points. One thing that really was my tipping point for me to get in the race. I saw last year's process. I saw Chris Stewart step down. I saw the special and how it produced what it did. And I thought, we've got to do better. And as I was chewing on that, one of my mentors, a Green Beret retired guy, he was talking to him and he said, Colby, no one else is coming. No one else is coming. He just kept saying that. He's like, no one else is riding over the hill on a white horse to save the day. No one else is coming. So who's going to do it? Who's going to do it for you? And he just kept pressing me. He's like, no one else. And you as a veteran, as a combat veteran, having served our nation, who needs to do it? He just kept saying that. And I was like, you're right. If I can't sit on the sidelines and go to this year's state convention and then be kicking myself thinking, man, I have no one but to blame but myself. So that was what got me off the seat, if you will. But Jared, yeah. I owe you an answer on the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Back to that example, the umbrella. If I'm negotiating off of the Constitution and I'm outside of that protective umbrella, then I'm wrong. And just the name red flag, that's just wrong.
You should throw up red flags, right?
Yeah, that's just wrong. Guns have always been guns. It's the people that have changed. But to your point, we can't just go after and start flagging people and saying you don't have this right anymore, or we're diminishing your right as a government. That's not what the founders intended. And so, I would fight for our gun rights all day long.
Yeah, but the world has changed. So we've entered new dimensions. Now, obviously, when they wrote it, they had dealings with cannons and privately owned naval to that level, naval warships and cutters.
They were also fighting with illegal guns.
But nowadays, we've entered a different era with, I guess, mass casualty type weapons, NBC stuff, things like that. And so it does cause even someone like me, who is a purist and absolutist, to go, okay, wait a second. But then you remember the cost of dealing with any of those things. And I don't know, it becomes tough. I do understand why it's a hard to broach subject.
One idea I would offer to consider is, we know the bad guys are going to always get their guns, no matter what we do. So let's stop focusing on taking guns from good people, and let's focus on how we can harden our most precious belonging, if you will, our children. And look at how we focus on protecting our money. If you walk into a bank, how many guards do you see? How many vaults are there? How many armored trucks are there that protect our money? But if you go to your kid's elementary school, what do you see? Nothing. Maybe the doors are locked. Maybe the doors are locked. Maybe you've got a security guy that's, a retired guy, not even armed. So I'm not saying we put more guns in our school, but let's look at our priorities. If that's what it's going to take.
Our priorities are in Ukraine right now.
Have you ever?
And if we took that money alone and re-secured our schools and actually had retired veterans, retired police officers, we have better security systems, automatic door locks. The money that has been spent, hundreds of billions has been spent in Ukraine, and yet we couldn't even give $5 billion to secure the border. We couldn't even get, $1 billion to go across schools nationwide and say,
what were the numbers on that bill they tried pushing across? So it was
$100 billion's already lost.
It was 140
billions coming.
It was 140 million for Ukraine.
No, billion.
This was written as a secure the border bill, and it broke down to 140 billion for Ukraine, or 140 million for Ukraine, whatever.
I think it was 100 billion, and then 60 billion went to Ukraine.
90 billion to Israel, and then it was like 15 for the border, and it was written. The headline was that little tiny number.
The border secure bill.
I was like, you guys are crackheads.
Well, it's the opposite of whatever the bill title is. Now, let's get into bills like that, the omnibus spending bills. Those come across Congress, and threatening to shut down the government is always an issue. And I think if the American people stopped getting scared of that, because Social Security still gets paid, military is supposed to get paid. I think non-essentials get paid after the bill's done, but
Back pay.
I know
I've been in a government shutdown. Yeah.
And Obama, remember the government shutdown that he blamed on Ted Cruz during his service, and then actually hired people to go secure and close down national monuments that are open air, the World War II monument in DC, to put orange tape up and not let these World War II veterans go see their monument. It was absolutely
They closed down Gettysburg. My dad, who's never leaves Utah, he goes out to visit my brother in Maryland at the time. He's a recruiter out there. And he's like, hey, we'll take the 4-hour drive over and see Gettysburg. My dad's a huge Civil War buff. Gettysburg is, if you've been there, you don't see any park rangers. It's just kind of an open area. And they had walled it off.
That's what the World War II thing. It's in the mall. You walk through it. You can sit at the fountain there. Mm-hmm. There's no doors or entry. It's just part of a walk. But he went out of the way. Now, they have so many strings tied to this. There's a lot of pork. There's a lot of funding Ukraine or whatever tied to these bills. And then there's the threat of shutdown. How would you vote on those? And honestly, you can answer you don't know, because a lot of times until that bill's in front of you, you won't know. But I guess what I'm asking is, are you prepared to vote in a way that means you will not get reelected if it means standing up for what you're running on now?
Yes, there's no other motivation. Honestly, I'm an old soldier. I'm not looking to make a career.
We're all the same age here, bro.
Yeah. I'm a young buck.
You're a young buck. Thank you.
If I vote or if I act contrary to my employer's wishes, then fire me. I don't want to be there. I shouldn't be there if that's happening. And so for me, I look at, the turmoil we had in changing the speaker, and now we have Speaker Johnson. I appreciate and support what he's trying to do. He's breaking the omnibus approach apart. He's saying, let's try to get back to some degree of regular order where we have 12 individual appropriations bills. We're not going to just vote up and down on the 3,000-page bill that Nancy Pelosi says we'll read it later. That's not okay. And so for me, passing a continuing resolution just enables the government to continue kicking the can down the road and operating off of previous policy decisions. So for me, if I have to vote to shut the government down, I vote to shut the government down to get us back on track. Heaven forbid the government shuts down just for a week or two. Heaven forbid.
Well, why are we not back down to pre-COVID budgets? And why haven't we been able to make a budget in 20 years? And the problem is they're still using budget money from COVID. Like, we've had to spend all of this. Well, now we're not dealing with the same stuff. Why don't we back down to spending at least that? And now Biden wants to do a $5 trillion spending spree, if not 6. And by the way, his State of the Union, I told it last week, it's like being waterboarded for an hour. And he was so angry. So whatever juice they got him pumped up on before that speech made him an angry old man.
Or maybe he's always angry.
He's actually showing his colors as being angry. But you know what? It's our Congress's at fault. They're the ones with the power of the purse, and they're not using it. And then if you do
declare war too. The war power.
Well, not in this generation. I mean, now it's like the president can.
That's my next question.
Under Obama, he could drop drone strikes on American citizens if he wanted in other countries without Congress. And this has just kind of gotten ignored. And now it's just, hey, we do what we want and you're tough. It's absolutely off the rails. The train is off the rails.
That's one of my next questions. As a combat veteran, what are your thoughts on, Okay, the hardest question. This is one that probably would be hard to answer for anyone who'd been there. But what are your thoughts on the anti-terrorism wars we experienced through the early 2000s? Do you think that they were justified? Do you think that they were a good use of our young men and women?
So the initial response is yes, to go in and unseat the Taliban, which was our mission, but to stay and transition to nation building, that's not the business.
Why was let me dig in on that. Why was unseating the Taliban our mission?
Because ultimately they were providing safe haven for Al Qaeda, for the the terrorists that launched 9/11. Now there are other threads that you can pull as to what was Saudi Arabia's role in that, what was Pakistan's role in that, but making sure that they no longer had that safe haven from which they could attack us was what we intended to do.
Do you think unseating the Taliban would have restricted Al Qaeda's ability to operate there?
It did initially. It just pushed them away, though. Pushed them into Pakistan, and so once that,
did it push them away because we were there, or because we unseated the Taliban? That's my question.
That's a chicken before the egg. That's a great question.
And did that create ISIS because we were there? Did ISIS grow because we had a different commander in chief?
I honestly think had they just called up the QRF, called up the Ranger Battalion, and went over there and let those guys do some field training practices on ground, and then brought them home, we'd had a much better effect over long term.
Which is what we did initially. I mean, there were special forces teams that came in out of our base in K2, south from Turkey over the mountains, and then we had a Ranger Battalion that jumped into Kandahar and seized Kandahar. But then it just grew way beyond the scope for 20 years that it should have been. And so, 20 years of mistakes, not the fault of those who were there fighting.
Not at all. No, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this right now. The soldiers who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq they have been through the meat grinder, and it's a meat grinder that, I mean, we're going to see the aftermath of it. Just like we did with Vietnam, we're going to roll out. We're starting to see it now because the guerrilla warfare is a different animal, and we keep trying to go in there and bolster a nation. And they're going to take democracy. Yeah, I get it. They're Stone Age last week. Next week they'll be
and it's absolutely against their religion, and you're going to change these people's very core.
But our young men and women paid that ultimate price for that, and it's a travesty. And it almost, look, I'm not a fan of Bush. I'm not a fan at all. I'm thinking Bush, when he gets to hell, will get the ultimate treatment.
Yeah, they'll find those weapons of mass destruction there.
But because
it's very profitable.
Because Dr. Ron Paul called it. Why are we going over there? To go over there. When I say we drop, we kick butt, and we leave, I mean the airplanes don't shut the engines down. The helicopters, they land, go in, kick butt, back on the bird home. We don't even have to pack a lunch. That's what I'm saying.
You mean shock and awe, and then we leave?
Yeah. Shock, and then the next morning they go, that's what I mean.
Expect to rebuild a nation, especially how you expect to fund the rebuilding of the nation.
And Afghans got a notorious history of shutting some stuff down.
Yes.
Because let's face it,
of the empires. Yeah.
They are the toughest human beings on earth because they live in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They're not tough because of genetics or whatever. They live where you have to be tough to live. That's where they live. That's how they live.
Yeah.
I mean, they shut down the Brits twice. They shut us down. They shut
the Russians.
The Russians. They shut down Alexander the Great. He owned everywhere else. And he's like, I can't play here.
Yeah.
They should have told us something.
Yes.
Well, what do you think? I mean, war is one hell of a machine, and it does profit. It does make a lot of profit for the elites who are invested in it. I know Trump was more focused on at home, securing the United States, but also bringing the military back to what it was pre-Obama, pre-Bush even, like actually filling our coffers, having our reserves, rebuilding the Navy, just a lot of filling in and making us strong at home.
Yeah.
Do you see us doing that again?
So I love what Trump did recently in the last few weeks. Now I may say it differently to him, but I love what he did with our NATO allies. He said, look, you guys aren't paying up. You never have. You probably never will. So when that balloon goes up and Russia's knocking on your door, we may not be there. Now we're not going to leave our alliance, but he's putting them on notice. He's demanding accountability. And for me personally, even though my daughter's raised her hand and she'll go fight and win, I don't want her going and dying in Ukraine while the French and the Germans are home having their tea and sitting on their rear ends. Our allies need to own those problems. We need to support to some degree, but we don't own the problems in their backyard. We're an ally for a reason. We're not the 911.
You are so insensitive, sir.
I'm concerned about that NATO alliance anyway, because what happens if, let's just say, crazy notion, because we have a couple of NATO alliances with some, let's just say, less than savory individuals. I'm thinking Erdogan.
Yes.
Who's to say Erdogan might pop off and kick something off somewhere over there? And then what? We're Article 5'd into a war that a madman started?
Yeah.
John Quincy Adams warned us against doing this, and we marched headlong into it.
Yeah.
George Washington as well. And when it began with the French in England, it's we need to stay out of this. We can't get in everybody's wars.
Yeah. And I'm not a defender. I'm not a defender of Putin by any means, but he kept telling NATO and us, if you put missiles in Ukraine, if you push them on my border, then that's my red line. And when he puts a red line down, he actually acts. So I'm not defending him at all, but I'm just saying we pushed his buttons and he responded.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Not to defend Obama, but also his red line was a couple 100 miles away, where Obama's was an ocean away.
Obama's was more like a pink line that if the wind blew wrong, it would move.
Well, Obama's red line got shut down by us, by the American citizens.
Yes,
it got shut down on social media. Because when he said the red line, social media lit up and said, no, we're done. Yeah. We're done. You can't commit us to another BS war where we send young men and women over to get traumatized and killed.
And I see one comment, we must hit them back much harder. So like right now we have little outposts speckled throughout Syria and Iraq that are just getting death by 1,000 cuts right now. And those are our troops. So if we're going to put troops out there, if we're going to do it, then we better do it. We better defend them.
Go big or go home. We better
have a deterrent. Right now they're just getting pinpricked to death in our president that we do strikes on empty warehouses. I mean the Houthis of all people are owning the Red Sea, and what response have we provided that stopped it? So,
would you recommend that the United States stopped being the world's policeman and maybe close the bases in Germany, South Korea? I mean, we've got bases everywhere. Like you said, we're spread out all over. Would you be down to bring everyone home, maybe put our troops on our own borders and just kind of lock it down? Or do you think we've already established being leaders of the free world and fighting for the little guy? Like, how do we fix this? Because we shouldn't be rebuilding communities. And I don't know where our money's going in Ukraine because someone's audited it.
And it's coming back to think blue and the big guy. It's
going back into the economies because a lot of these government officials of Ukraine are now considered elites. They're extremely wealthy. And I don't know how their soldiers are surviving. And I don't know if guns are even getting to them. But if I'm Putin, I'm looking at the United States funding this war and I'm going, I'm losing a generation of young men because the Americans stepped in. If that's not an act of war, I don't know what is. The fact that we're funding all of this and then we're browbeating the Europeans for not jumping in and paying more against this and putting more into Ukraine. And I'm just like, where does it end? How do we stop it now?
Yeah.
Does it mean pulling all the troops back and taking care of the homeland? Or do we only go with NATO members who have actually paid? Like how do we fix this?
I think we certainly requires our revisit for sure. But my approach and my thought is America is what it is because our fight for our security should always be an away game. We don't ever want to have our fight for security be a home game.
Right.
Now that doesn't mean we're in everybody's backyard, but there's a reason we're in Germany from World War II, in Japan, in South Korea. There's a reason that we have these strategic footholds that are solid. They're not getting pinpricked to death like we are in Syria and Iraq right now. There's a reason that we have a presence abroad so that we can always maintain our security as an away game and never a home. If we just withdrew and became just totally with our head in the sand here, then that fight's going to find us. And with an open border, it's already too late. We don't even know what's in our borders right now. That's just a ticking time bomb.
I think it is a ticking time bomb right now, with federal buildings not being protected, with the airways not being protected. As I mentioned earlier, the very people meant to protect your air travel and your federal buildings, they're moved elsewhere. And I don't know if it's by design, but this open border policy for the last 3.5 years, it does feel like we're in a ticking time bomb. And when it's going to happen and where it's going to happen, and then what state of emergency will our president declare that will take more of our freedoms? And I can only imagine what it would look like if we moved all our military back home under the guise of, hey, we're not going to be the world's savior anymore, but we are going to be on the borders. Are we losing freedoms, or are we getting more? Like that first outline you said, am I voting for more freedom or less? Yeah. Do we have more freedoms when we are all over the world than if we're at home? Because they'd have to protect, I mean, they would be soldiers on home field. And America's not designed to have our military on home field. You know, being military within our country, you're absolutely right. We should be playing away games.
Well, just imagine let's pretend you're a special forces captain and you're giving your 5-paragraph op order prior to deployment. And you tell your guys, there is no per diem on this one. But what we're doing is we're infiltrating their country. And then when you get there, you're going to sign up for all of their welfare programs. And what this is going to do is it's going to be your per diem. So you're going to get housing, because that's what China's doing to us right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most Chinese coming across are getting free housing and a credit card
and
paid for by us.
And amazingly, they come across and they're clean shaven. They haven't been in the jungle for weeks.
No, tell them what you
right
noticed.
through the pipeline.
And it
through
seems,
the pipeline.
Yeah. And the Darien Gap, that rough area, that's their Marine Corps basic training crucible. You know, that last 2 weeks of their basic training.
Yeah, they're military.
To make it through their Darien Gap. And then they held a graduation in southern Mexico and kick them on north.
Well, Jared said that in one of the border videos you watched, it was the Chinese kids, guys walking across, they're in their own tent.
They have their own
security.
They have their own compound down there, just on the north side of the Darien Gap. The Chinese do, and
Which
the Chinese
drug cartels aren't afraid of them. Afraid of them.
The Darien Gap is a piece of jungle they couldn't even build the America's road through. It's a tough area, and on the north side of that, the Chinese have their own compound. Everyone else just kind of mingles in this crap hole. But the Chinese have built a compound.
And the drug cartels are a big
threat
to everyone else.
Drug cartels aren't going to touch them. They shut their fentanyl off.
Exactly. Yep. China gives them the precursors. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. So we've talked. Tell us more again about how you're going to.
I want to dig through your website.
Our federal lands, because that's a huge issue in Tooele County. I'm sure it is in St. George. You guys have grown ridiculously. Now Tooele County is one of the #1 growing counties in the state, whereas Washington County was for a really long time. And I'm curious, what do you see? What do you see the Congress can do where federal lands is concerned? Because it is a state's issue we've got to take up with the Supreme Court. Oh, and do you have anybody you endorse for governor? And what are your thoughts on that? Because a good governor is who's going to get us our state lands, to be honest.
Yeah, who we have to be partners with. Yeah, I'm just through this cycle, I've been getting to know Phil Lyman, and I really, really like him. I love his stand. I love his courage, and I love how he's a constitutionalist. And
he took on the BLM too.
Yes, he did. I've seen his mugshot for sure.
In a hard way.
So
are you running a convention caucus only, or are you gathering signatures?
I'm doing both. Okay. And the reason for that is I've been a precinct chairman. Was a state delegate before. My wife's our secretary treasurer for our precinct. We know and appreciate the caucus process, and that's my campaign's primary focus. But given this system that Utah has that allows for signatures, you as the delegates, as the voters, should expect and demand of me that I get to the finish line using every legal means possible. And that's what we're going to do. We're not going to go into the fight leaving one weapon at home.
I personally hate that, but I understand it because it's the game, it's the rules that I believe the establishment Republicans created.
Yes.
It costs campaigns a lot of money. And sometimes it makes delegates irrelevant.
Yeah,
and
Phil Lyman has said similar. He's doing similar. If we're going to change it, we've got to beat it.
We need to change it through our legislators, and we need bravery in our Utah state legislation to go, we're done. We're done with this. But of course, we're not going to do that.
They're too worried about protecting their calendars right now.
Well, and when we have a primary and somebody wins by 36%, that's upsetting. But I'm curious, how many signatures do you have to gather?
For the House seat, it's 7,000. The state ones are a lot more, but for the
like yours,
US House,
for you,
7,000 is what
7,000. So are you doing that on your own, or do you have to pay a company?
Both.
Yikes. Yeah. So that's expensive. So let's get to your website, because I'm sure you have a donate button on there for people who believe in you and want to donate. As a party chair, I'm sad that you have to play the game this way, but I can't say, I would be lying if I haven't mentioned folks that when they've been coming to me and they want to run for office. In the past, I've told them to do the dual path so they get secured in both areas. I know that it's smaller though in my county. You have to get like 400 signatures, and I know they don't pay money for those. They go to 400 people and get 400 people to believe in them. And that's not an easy feat, and I don't discount those signing. I just hope that you, as this candidate, have really, really informed the people gathering signatures on your behalf of what you stand for, what you believe in, so they can actually let the people know getting signatures who they're voting for. But as a party chair, I don't exist without the caucus convention system. So, rude, but I get it.
I have a big question.
Yeah.
All right. You ready? So you worked for the evil empire Google.
Oh, here we go.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
We're on ColbyForUtah.com is what you're looking at. I don't know who this dude is.
We're looking at the surfer bro picture you got there with the beard and the messy hair.
Surfer bro, I haven't heard that. Yeah.
That's what you look like.
What's up, dude?
Like
that picture was actually taken after about 8 days in combat, and we got back to our fire base, and we had no power. And our water came from the riverbed. Like, we pumped it from the water, put it in a tank.
Oh my gosh.
And we had no power to get water. And so
how old are you in that picture?
Oh boy. I'm in my late 30s, probably mid 30s.
Wow. It reminds me when my dad was undercover and he had this long beard, and he came to one of my parent teacher conferences. He looked like a homeless person. And the teacher had never met him before. She's like, are you okay? Is this guy bothering you? I'm like, oh my gosh, every day. But, he was undercover and he had to look this way, but with the long, scraggly beard and the long hair. So that's really funny. And it's ColbyForUtah.com. And, check out the website. I'm sure Jared's going to share it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's already in the show notes.
There is a donut. I wish. I would love a donut button. There's a donate button, and I'm sure that Colby appreciates if you can't afford to financially contribute, and you believe in him, and you really want to help get him some exposure. He'll appreciate volunteers, I'm sure, and making phone calls and maybe gathering signatures, which I hate. But he's actually get to know him, get on the site, read what his issues are. If we haven't covered them, contact him. I'm sure you're available because you have nothing but time on your hands
reading
during
the issues
campaigning.
was for Holly's half of the audience. My half of the audience, the issues get announced in grunts tomorrow afternoon. Anyway, so tell us about Google.
Yeah, so thanks for asking. So I've been working in DC for almost 9 years at being the Green Beret liaison and legislative director in the Pentagon, and I'd had enough of government. And I had a friend that actually got hired out at Facebook, and she was saying, man, and she came from the Pentagon too. She said, it's a different world. You need to come out to the corporate world and get away from the bureaucracy. And so I just started interviewing around with different companies, and Google hired me to be a program manager for Google Fiber in Florida. So I wasn't a telecoms guy by any stretch, but they just needed a manager. They needed a leader to literally open the office, get people hired, start interacting with the engineering firm, and start building relationships with the local county officials and state. And then the experts, the telecom experts, would come in and help build the actual fiber backbone and so forth. And so that went on for a little while. And then Google realized, we don't build the internet, we're on it. And so they actually, less than a year into my job, there's still some Google Fiber markets out there, but less than a year into that job, they shut down Florida. So I lost my job. Like, we moved, started my kids in school, and here I was out of job. But to Google's credit, they said, hey, we know we're putting all of these teams, all of these markets under tremendous, we just axed you all, but we're going to give you opportunity and time. If you want to stay with Google, we'll help you find a new home. And so I did. I needed the job, and so I got hired to actually go to work at Google headquarters in California. And I worked a little bit in cyber policy because I'd had some cyber defense and offensive work in the Pentagon doing legislative work, but ultimately found myself in helping build product teams. My Google directors, as they started to get to know me and my experience, they said, man, you're a leader. You've led.
They found out what a Green Beret's job is.
Yeah. And that's why they hired me initially, build teams and help us make good teams do good things. And so when I got to headquarters, they said, we need you and your team to help stand up new teams, get the teams going. And then when a team is done, help them dissolve and find new homes. So I started with really the team building function of product development.
Wait, can I interject? I got a question, because when you say Google, I picture DEI like ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's that like, going into a software company in Silicon Slopes, basically?
What color did you dye your
Valley?
hair for this?
Yeah. What was that like? Did you have all these snowflakes traumatized by a military man?
Yeah. Well, the beauty of being a Green Beret is you have to understand your operational environment. Like, when I was in Afghanistan, I was working with tribal mullahs. When I was in Colombia, I was working with grumpy Colombian colonels. When I was I went from the Pentagon. My last boss in the Pentagon was a 4-star admiral. My first boss at Google was an openly gay female lesbian. So talk about one end to the other. So I had to learn how to function in different environments, but not compromise on who I am. And it was interesting. When people say, what's it like to work at Google? When I went to Google headquarters, one of the first times I went into the men's bathroom, used the bathroom, washing my hands, and there's a little basket there, and it had feminine hygiene products, and I'm thinking,
because you don't want your.
Did I go in the wrong one?
Exactly.
Oh, no.
Here's me, the good old Mormon boy from small town Utah, and I literally was like, crap, I went into the wrong bathroom. I gotta get out of here.
I gotta sneak out quick. Sneak out. No one saw me.
It would have never dawned on me that there would be a tampon in a men's bathroom. So just I had to. Yeah, it was not ideal. And once
you probably got to know some incredible people.
I did,
and
for sure.
you get to know the people rather than. I bet you were not what they expected either. They probably expected you to be a judgy Mormon military guy who hated everyone, and yet you were probably inspiring and kind and encouraging, and you got them to follow on a common ground, like, hey, let's be a success. And I mean, that's what good leaders are. They're not judging that you're gay or that you're trans. What they're doing is getting the best out of you and using that to prop up a team.
Yes.
Rather than shine a light on you because you're gay or because you're trans. That's not what you're about. You're more than that. It's more depth in that.
I'll bet Google learned a lesson when they hired you to go to Florida, because for a special forces commander, that sounds like that's like a job that's written for your skill set. To go in, for everyone who's listening, Green Berets are war fighters, yes, but they are not. Green Berets are war fighter trainers, and they particularly go to a foreign country and they find a group of guys who don't like the bosses of that foreign country and teach them to fight and then lead them in that fight. But for you to go to Florida, compose a team, build a plan, build a system, that sounds like almost like that was textbook a job.
Yes.
I'm surprised. I'll bet Google looks for that now. If they ever go and open up a new space, they say, all right, I want you to find me all of the Green Berets you can, because they particularly know. All we got to do is train them, get an A team together. One guy knows how to set up phones. One guy.
Yes.
And seriously,
that's how it was.
That's what they do.
I love the A team.
And if I could, back to that first boss I talked about, she's still a great friend to this day. In fact, she's donated to the campaign, even though she's on the opposite spectrum of where I believe, because I had to build those relationships of trust. And she was actually a veteran as well and served our nation. And to your point, being empathetic and building respectful relationships doesn't mean you compromise on who you are.
Exactly.
But you can still show respect and be empathetic. But once COVID hit, my wife and I looked at each other and thought, why are we still here in California?
Yeah.
And
did you leave before or after they filled the skate parks with sand?
Oh, I don't know, because I didn't have.
Did you leave before COVID or after?
Right after. The gears were starting to turn a little bit, and then when it hit, because we've been coming to St. George for decades, visiting family and friends, and
I love St. George.
We bought some land here, and then it just became, we've got to find a job that will allow us to get here, and COVID helped us do that.
You know, some of the people I love most in this world are gay, and I think it's such a misconception. It's such a stereotype that Republicans hate gays. And for me, I think if you believe in God, you understand God does not make mistakes. And so for me, I love it when you have a friend, because it doesn't matter their sexuality. I don't walk around telling people mine. And when there's a common ground, whether it's a job, whether it's your principles, whether it's patriotism, that's what you should look for in the people you love, and loyalty and kindness. And I think great leaders will pull that out of people, regardless of who they sleep with, who they love. And I think that it's a beautiful thing. You and Google, it's crazy that you got through and you had to compromise nothing other than you just had to just kind of change focus. Instead of sending people to war, you're sending people to tech support.
What's your ride
but
to
you
the
did
death?
A takeover for sure, because Google has been number one forever, right?
Was your ride to the Death Star comfortable?
To the Death Star.
To Google.
My ride.
That's Google gets a bad rap, and earnedly so.
Yeah. Not even talking about California. That's even worse.
Google's bad rap was their search algorithms during the last election. They've come out and openly admitted to what they've done, but Facebook also. And I think that's just a generational gap that's happening. I think that will level out after AI takes over and we're all slaves to the robots. So don't worry about it, guys. It'll go away soon.
Skynet.
Yeah, Skynet. I wanted to go over, but back to your website a little bit. I want to dig in a little more on that.
How much time do you have with us?
probably got to wrap up in a little bit. I'm trying to.
Okay.
Okay.
But,
I just want to go over on your website. We're
Remember,
talking
it's Colby at
or Colby for
Col-
Utah.
for that's spelled out for Utah.com.
Yep. And it's in the show notes. You can just go there. So on your issues, you've got national security, you've got life, and that's talking about the value of children, the value
of life total,
yeah.
of adults, of grandparents. That's how I take it.
And if I mention anything here you want to hit on right now, we just want to give you a minute to kind of close out the show here.
Okay. Yeah.
Got the economy, it's doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the border we talked about. Yeah.
We're winning the border. Veterans.
Yeah, talked about that. That's look forward to that fight.
Yeah, I think a lot of young men and women in this country look forward to you having that fight.
And a lot of kids of veterans look forward to somebody taking on the VA and making it a better place.
Yep. Got the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Education. We didn't talk on education much, but you mentioned in here you want to give parents more rights and knowledge, and then you want to remove the critical race theory and woke initiatives that they're corrupting our children.
A key thing I see with education is parental sovereignty. Parents need to have, I have to fight at the federal level to make sure that the ability for parents to control what's being taught to their kids is under their control and not determined by federal bureaucrats in DC that are tying funding to those decisions. And I have family members who teach and who are longtime educators, and they're at they're tired of not being teachers anymore. They're teaching to some arbitrary standard, and their funding's being tied to that. And these are in small schools in Utah. So
would you vote to get rid of the Department of Education?
If it meant that funding and that bureaucratic overhead goes away and it trickles down to us.
Well, it should go to the states. The states should be in charge of their own education, in my humble opinion.
I don't like when politicians say, do away with the Department of Education, but they never followed up with, well, yeah, don't just reprogram that money to some other slush fund. It needs to go home. That funding and all that bureaucratic bloat needs to go away, and all that needs to be redirected home, back to Utah.
I don't like the Department of Education. I think it was a faulty arrangement to try to get reelected by Jimmy Carter, and it has failed, and it has ruined our education. Our education has not climbed in any measurable amount since they started. It's only dropped every year. Yeah. Limited government.
Yeah. Talked about
that. Bernie, Joe Biden, I hear you can go carry him around. I don't know. Maybe Jim Henson.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what? I think they're going for drugs because Jim Henson sadly has already passed, and they couldn't get Jim Henson to control him.
The Muppets. Yeah. Well, they're doing enough hair plugs though to make him look like he's gaining hair while I'm losing it. Amazing.
Oh, it's crazy, right? And do you think they're like before every show they got a guy that holds him right behind the ears and pulls back, and then they staple the loose skin to his face?
You can do that with tape now
because they keep tightening him right up.
Tape.
Right up. Yeah, he takes orders from everyone else on his staff. Why not?
Have you seen the font on the teleprompter? Like you can get like one sentence out on that teleprompter. The font is so large, I can read it, and I need glasses when I'm reading.
It's like a learn to read book.
And then he just doesn't read it.
But
this is it. On the world stage, we're a joke.
Exactly.
And I'm done. And I know most of our viewers, the ones watching live and the ones that will watch later, you future people who are listening to the podcast or watching us somewhere, all of us are so sick and tired of the norm. We don't want someone to go to DC and become part of that swamp. We want people who are going to shake it up, even if it means they're only in office for one term. And that's something I'm always asking. Are you prepared to fight like it's the only term? Though I want good people to be reelected, I'm done with them assuming it's in the bag. I want every single elected to act like it's their last term, and they better make a difference.
People follow winners. We got to win. We got to get victories for home. If not,
Well,
then send us home. Yeah.
I love it. And we're at 4:00. So if you want to give us I need to send you out the invitation for convention, which is April 19th. It's a Friday night. We're inviting all of our state delegates and, of course, our county to do their voting. And we're also inviting our central committee as well as the public. So anybody who wants to meet you should come on out to our county convention. It's April 19th at Tooele High School's auditorium. And I don't know if I've got an email address for you, but I will get you the details for your campaign.
Yeah, you've got an email address for him right there.
Yeah,
the Colby at colbyforutah.com.
Yeah, that works. Well, and then Maddie, my political director, helped with Jared get me on.
And Maddie is outstanding. I want to thank her. She's very pleasant to text with. I'm not a very good texter, and she made it easy without.
Did she represent him at Lincoln Day?
Yes, she was the young lady that was there.
Things.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And we appreciate your support at Lincoln Day, and we also appreciate your visits here to the county. Again, we're going to share this interview on all the Republican pages, and sometimes Jared even carves it out.
No, it'll be carved up for you to take and do with what you want. It'll
share how you like
everything.
Thank you.
And then convention will offer booth space, but we are advertising convention to the general public. We've got plenty of seating, but we want to get you in front of our delegates at least 3 times. So whether we count this one and I share it to the delegates or you share it to the delegates, also we'll have you in person, and then we'll also have you out for convention. And we hope that you're not competing with us and other counties to get there. We know every county wants you at their convention. Yeah. And because running a campaign is expensive, if you guys like what you hear and you want to help, donate at his website, and also consider volunteering. I recommend, though, if you're going to volunteer, make sure you know what you're talking about. Get to know this candidate and never speak for him, but definitely get to know what his values are and what that website means and how to direct people. And I'd like to give you the floor for your last impression to the people of Tooele County and farther.
Sure.
Beyond. Infinity and beyond. Yeah.
Thank you.
For your daughter.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you both for spending this. You've been so generous with your time and talking me through issues that are important. So thank you. You haven't disappointed at all. And,
thank you.
And the friends that we've made in Tooele already have been, we've shut down. The last time we were there last Saturday, we actually shut down the library. Like, they closed and people were still wanting to visit. And so we spilled out into the parking lot, and people were helping Maddie and I load things up. And it was great. That home feeling of Tooele is real and legit. And you guys represented that perfectly today. So thank you.
Thank you.
For me, for the voter, this is a job interview. I'm seeking to be hired by you as your employer. I work for you. And as a result, I see the choice in this election, in my race particularly. It boils down to leadership, judgment, and accountability. All of these issues that we talked about today, you should ask yourself, who has the experience in leadership? Who has that judgment that's been tested both in combat and the corporate world that can best weigh in on your behalf to make sure that not only our national level is taken care of, but here at home? Who can you trust to truly fight for you and protect us when it comes to land and water and the border, and making sure that our kids are properly educated by us, not by the federal bureaucracy? Those are some of the choices that are at play in this election. And then finally, I'll leave with you. I swore an oath over 30 years ago, be 31 years this summer, that I raised my hand for the first time to support and defend our Constitution. This isn't a concept that I just speak about, or I was elected 3 months ago and now it's important to me. It's something that I've lived for 3 decades. I have friends who've died for it, and I still wear the flag on my shoulder when I'm in the reserves. I still am serving because it's important to me. And that's the trust and the confidence you can have in me when I hopefully earn the right to represent you. The Constitution and what we stand on is everything. And if we're tap dancing off of it, then fire me. I shouldn't be there. And so that's what we're hoping to bring for the people of Tooele and for our 2nd District, give you that choice.
And you'll also commit to being in Tooele County, being accessible to the citizens as if you lived here, I assume.
Yes, for sure. And I even have family that live up north, not too far from there. So again, this is a job interview. And if I'm not connecting and communicating transparently with you, my employers, then I shouldn't be in the job. And so that's the standard that I'm going to hold myself, and then the A team that we're going to build. They're going to be on the rescue for you. And if we're not, then we shouldn't be in the job.
Very good.
That's fantastic.
Everybody, Colby Jenkins. That's colbyforutah.com. Go and check him out. If you go down into the show notes, there'll be one of them. It'll be written in blue. You click on that, it'll take you right to it.
Colby, we really appreciate you taking this long with us
thank
today.
you very much.
And it's a pleasure to meet you. And I look forward to having you out again. And please thank your dear wife. I'm sure that it's not an easy feat having a husband running for Congress, but she's probably used to you doing crazy stuff already with 30 years in the military.
Yeah, she's a Green Beret wife. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a special kind of wife. Yeah.
Thank you for your service and the service of your child and your elders. And
thank Maddie for getting us in link and being squared away enough to, make it so even I can figure out what's going on most of the time.
And think about us anytime. If there's something if you ever want to be on again, we would love to have you. You've been a phenomenal guest, and I'm sure there's a lot more we missed that you're going to go, shoot, I should have said this or this. You're welcome anytime. And so, reach out to us. Also, from the party's perspective, if Maddie wants to send me any advertisement, you're doing something or you have a video out or anything like that, get it to me. And I'll post it on our GOP pages so that we offer that to every candidate, because our number one rule is educate the populace for better representation. We totally believe in that.
Thank you. Thanks for leading. Thanks for making this possible. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your leadership, sir.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you, Colby. You have a good one.
Hey, take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That's Colby Jenkins.
Wow.
And,
how do you
he's a good dude. Made
you
Holly cry.
it just made me happy.
I'm going to be clipping that Holly crying thing. That's going to be our new intro.
That somebody is sharing hope with other people, because there's too many people that have given up. And I'm like him. I refuse to give up. I'm going to fight to the very last day to preserve what is our country and what our Constitution is. And I may be standing alone, but it's worth it to me. It's worth it. My kids are worth it. Their future's worth it. And I refuse to give up. So that made me happy.
Yeah. No, that was good. I have a cousin-in-law that's in the Space Force.
You have a cousin everywhere.
Yes.
Like me.
Yes, I do.
I would love, I tell my kids, like, I want you to, if you're going to do it, if you want to be in the military, go to Space Force or the Air Force.
Yeah.
I could see both my kids doing really well in either of those branches because it interests them. And because flying a drone from a trailer in Nevada sounds okay to me if my child is.
Sounds better than trying to hide deeper into the ground, but your buttons are in the way. Yeah, I get it.
Well, my daughter would probably go to officer training school and be the boss by the time she graduates, because that's just who she is. She's
That's
tough.
fine. That's fine. Yeah. No, she's a good kid. All right, Holly, we've still got 2 hours left.
Yeah. Should we call it? Should we let everyone go home?
We
I
can.
have to hard stop at 6 though.
That's fine.
I have a ladies' night to get to.
Ooh, what's on ladies' night? What's on the agenda?
I'm not sure. I just know it's going to be really fun. and requires a lot of running around beforehand to get all settled up. And then,
What?
And then I've got to run home, take kids home.
God, why do girls make
Change
everything
clothes.
they do so complicated?
Because we do it so rarely.
They ruin everything,
We
guys.
rarely ever, I don't know about other ladies, but I rarely do a ladies' night. So you got to prep for it, plan for it, get excited. Girls, we need our girls. We always need our guy friends, but sometimes we just need our girls, just like guys need to have their guys. It's nice. It's nice to have a support group of people that can know what you're going through and, hear you, see you, and not roll their eyes because they're exhausted from all that chatter. That's what girls do. We and we feed off it. We love it. We welcome it. So it's exciting. And don't roll your eyes. Or do. You do you, boo. Oh, what are you going to do tonight?
Not ladies' night. That sounds like hell.
Oh, then you don't know the right ladies. Ladies' night is awesome.
Oh, it sounds like more talking than I want to do in a month.
Or singing. It can involve karaoke, and I love karaoke.
Nobody wants to hear me sing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you got on the news for us today?
Well,
Did you see breaking news this morning about the prosecutor, the DA in Georgia?
Fannie Willis. Fannie Willis got off scot-free, and
she just has to fire her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend got fired. They both did the same crime, but only he did wrong. So,
and she perjured herself, as did he. And the judge thinks that's okay.
Hey, he's apparently the white men of black assistant temporary prosecutors. So he's out.
I'm telling you right now, guys. When you have a judge that
the judge
approves, she perjured herself, but let's trust everything she does and all this evidence that she brings. She's a proven liar, but that shouldn't affect it. Carry on.
Here's the other thing. Apparently, that judge is up for re-election this year in a Democrat area. So that's what we saw. A lot of people called it beforehand.
You forget this area, though, is one of the deciding factors of Trump losing the election. So I trusted about as much as I could throw it.
But that's what the judge is thinking, I'm sure. But Fannie Willis is still on. I don't know how much this will shade the case they've got going. I don't know what's going to happen with it. We're in a weird time in this country. I don't know. I would suggest upping your magazine count on the bookshelf right now. You want to get all those, like Car and Driver.
I don't even think they make magazines anymore, do they?
Sure. And, you want to up the magazine count on the bookshelf.
When's the last time you bought a magazine? Or we have it's a double entendre.
I buy guns and ammo magazines all the time. But anyways,
G&A. Instead of GQ.
Yeah. When a new pistol comes out, I like to read the review.
Of course.
And
because the internet doesn't exist.
I'm a slow reader, and I just can't stand by the magazine rack and make it through it in a
Oh my God, I haven't even seen a magazine rack.
They've got one right there at Walmart.
You mean okay, I know there's a double entendre, but when's the last time you saw a magazine? I think the last time I saw a real one, is in the airport.
Well, the one I see is,
and the magazines are like $12 or $20.
Right there in Walmart by where they have the books.
Where they say an alien made me pregnant. Those magazines?
No, not where you're walking out.
Oh.
Though I'm sure that one's
okay, by the books. Well, our Walmart just got a whole new overhaul.
They moved it. The books are back where the video games used to be. The video games have moved over one more. It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. And I haven't been I was in there last week for my son's birthday to get him something. He wanted books. Went to where I thought the books were. That'll tell you how long it's been since I've been in a Walmart. I went
to Walmart probably 4 times last year.
Yeah.
Because I got a girlfriend. I don't have to go to Walmart anymore.
Well, and I got Walmart Plus.
I've already been there
They
twice
deliver
this
to
year.
my house, and sometimes on the same day. And
Yeah, they're pretty
knock
quick.
on wood, have never messed up my order. And Walmart Plus gives you 10% off or 10 cents per gallon
Yeah.
off of gas.
Yeah.
And it gives you Paramount Plus. I
Yep.
mean, I didn't have to leave the house again. My husband goes because he just probably likes to get out of the house.
I like to see the magazine rack, and I walk down the fishing aisle every time. Every time. But anyways,
Where's that out now?
Yeah, Fannie Willis has stayed in.
Where's the fishing stuff at now?
The fishing stuff is still backed by automotive.
Okay.
Yeah, still. They ain't moving fish. Well, they kind of moved it because they moved the gun rack over onto the side.
They sell guns there?
Yeah, but it's
Do they?
G-rated guns. Yes.
I did not know
Like if you want to
that.
buy a shotgun, a 22, you can't buy obviously any of the evil guns. But
Well, they do over at over by the what's the new one that just came in, the new place I told you about when I went over and looked at a gun there. It's by Tractor Supply, but no, it's behind the Maverick in Stounsbury.
oh yeah, that's not very new. Sportsman's
Sportsman's
Warehouse.
Warehouse. Well, it's new to
They
us.
sell guns. Well, the Sportsman's Warehouse has been there for 2 years now.
I'm telling you, I haven't been out in stores in a long time.
Well, from a person who, prior to a boating accident, had frequented their establishment a few
Damn those
times.
boating accidents.
So a little bit of news, that local news there. There's a news story about that kid that sadly shot his father out here. New details released on that 9-year-old who shot his father out here. It's tragedy. It's an awful story. The news story makes it like he's addicted to the video games you like, the Modern Warfare.
And which is for 17 plus, which let me
Well,
just
I mean-
say how irritating if you're playing a game like that and you're using big kid language
And
and
those
you
little
get,
kids come on
there are tons of kids on there
and they start
yet-
crying. So I got to bully him a
so
little
they'll
bit.
report you, and I don't bully them. In fact, I'm extra kind to them, but the bullying is bad. And I don't know what parent lets their kid play those games because and expect any different. You're playing with grown people. I don't think it's violence causes people to be violent, though. But a 9-year-old shouldn't be
I
playing.
don't know what change it could have in a 9-year-old's brain, but I particularly am not one that takes a stand that violent video games will make someone violent. But this does sound like I'm not victim blaming, but it sounds like the kid had a troubled childhood. He was living with his father. His father had 2 adult roommates, and those adult roommates had 4 young children. They say that the kid had to stay in the bed with the father due to behavioral problems. So it doesn't sound like the kid, you can't blame this on the video game if there were previous behavioral problems. That's just my opinion. Sounds like the kid shot his father and then took a hatchet to his father, or vice versa.
I wonder
because his
if there's-
father was trying to restrict him from playing on the tablet or cell phone.
I have a couple questions.
At
I wonder,
bedtime.
1, if this child has a special needs of any sort.
Mm.
And I wonder, 2, if this child is a victim of any sort. There's a lot of brutal. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a little brutal, this child's reaction and the fact that the father had defensive wounds, which show a struggle.
And
I'm wondering, I don't
I'm-
know.
And look, I am pro 2A as it gets, but I think if you've got little kids, you've got to read that room if you're going to have guns accessible.
What does 2-way mean?
2A.
Oh, 2-way. I'm like, I'm pro 2.
I'm a
2-way.
radio operator. I like a
I'm
good
like-
2-way, good squelch.
As
No.
opposed to a 3-way.
Holly.
Pro
This is
3-way radios.
G-rated show. But I believe that if there's any questionable circumstance in the home, you need to take the steps to keep that weapon safe.
Okay.
Who said that? Who said that? I'm coming for you.
I think
Anyways.
that this, just reading the story, he has a roommate with young children, and you said the son had to stay with the dad
2
in the
roommates
bedroom
and 4 young
for
children.
behavioral issues.
But it says the kid has to stay with him for behavior. Now,
So
were
that
they
right there should be a red flag.
Yeah, lock your gun up. Lock it up. And I mean, serious. If you're going to be a gun owner, you don't read that.
O'Malley, you
I'm
heard
hiding.
nothing.
Anyways,
I think it's smart to be a gun owner and lock your stuff up from
Yes.
teenagers
yes,
in the house, because you never know what's going to set teenagers off, or their gray matter is still forming, and you just don't know.
Your mom is getting after you now.
That was my mom who said my mom. It
Your mom
wasn't
who
me.
said Holly. She heard it.
No,
and
she
saw
said
it.
Holly. That's
I know,
what
and
I
I'm
hear
sure,
when I read
and
that.
I'm sure your mother, like, there's side eye. I see side eye in that Holly. Anyways,
You just said you were proud of me, even the.
she was.
the bad
She was
parts.
proud of you. Every once in a while.
Hey, I never said I'm not immature. Okay, I'm
But-
very immature.
Yeah, she's immature. Anyways,
Immature.
so we've got, as a gun owner, I mean, like, I would never carry a gun in a subpar holster. I wouldn't.
Rude.
And so just because it's a safety feature, it's all a safety feature. I used to have a SIG P320, and I was super scared of that gun because it has a lot of reviews of safety issues. So I never carry it. It never goes on my hip, doesn't cruise out in public. It was just a fancy paperweight. And then a boating accident happened. I don't want to have to worry about it. But I enjoyed shooting it. It's a great shooting pistol. But it was known to have gone off in people's holsters sometimes. It could tilt 28 degrees or whatever and goes off, shoots a hole in the ground behind you. So
But that's just you. I mean, when you live in a house with teenagers, or let's
Yes,
say
they
roommates
get
that you
angry.
don't
You
know, new family, I know that it just depends. Like you said it first, you have to read the room, and you have to protect teenagers from themselves. You have to protect young kids from themselves because they don't know what they don't know. And
apparently
mortality,
you have to protect yourself from young kids.
Yeah, and mortality still is just it's not real to kids. They don't really understand death is forever. I don't care if they play video games or just video games, or they watch violent movies.
And this is a sad story. Gosh.
It's horrific.
I mean, I'm hoping.
But I'm sure there's a lot more to
this 9-year-old, there is no chance this 9-year-old's going to end up healthy as an adult. You can't therapy that away. What that kid did and saw.
I don't think we know yet, because it could be worse. This kid could be a victim of his father.
It could be, but
and then
even
again,
then,
is therapy needed.
Even then, there's no way this kid's going to end up in a healthy headspace.
I hope, and that's me again. There's that word again. I hope they get all the details, and I hope that they've got the ability to try to help this kid, because you can't throw a 9-year-old in jail.
And I'm wondering how the roommates didn't hear it.
Yeah, it said in the story he came out and told him his dad was dead.
He told him, my dad's bleeding.
I think he said Andy's dead, even though he was unconscious.
It didn't say that in the story. It just said my dad's bleeding.
Go up.
I'm trying. My mouse has to wake up to its.
The son went to bed.
Oh, yeah, he said and was dead. Yeah. Shot in the back of the head and suffered cuts to his hands, face, hands, and arms. Head, face, hands, and arms.
They appeared to be defensive wounds.
And they found a hatchet.
So there was a fight. Unless the kid used the hatchet after he had shot him, because he wasn't dead. He was unconscious when roommates got to him. But again, I'm wondering, a 9-year-old this is so out there for a 9-year-old. And I'm not a therapist.
That's so heavy.
But I wonder if there's something deeper, if there's abuse in the home, if there's something that triggered this child, or if there is maybe the child has a disability of some sort.
Yeah.
That makes him act out violently. Either way, you should have a gun locked up around a teenager, around a child, because again, they don't understand mortality. And they also tend to go off the handle quite easily. Anyone who has a teenager knows that it's one day to the next.
And I'm sure even the roommates are messed up over this. Oh, let me ask you a question. Let's say you're living in a house with your girls' night friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of them has a tragedy happens. One of them dies in the house. Would you be okay? Like, would you still live in that house, or would you be calling a realtor like then?
No,
I think I'd.
You think you're afraid of ghosts or something?
I don't know, but I don't want to tempt. I don't want to find out.
Well, have you seen the housing market? Good luck. Because they have to disclose that to buyers. And P.S.
Really?
You're not going to sell that house in this market. And if you do, where are you going to live? I'm just sorry. Reality check.
Mm.
You know what's sad? And people don't realize when there are deaths in a home that are brutal or bloody.
In Utah, do you have
to pay yourself to clean that up?
Oh, I'm sure. Do you have to, if someone dies in the house, do you have to tell in Utah?
I believe so.
Are we a required state?
I'm not sure. I could ask my great friend who's also a realtor.
Is she going to be on ladies' night?
Yes.
Tell her hi.
I will.
Is the other one going to be on ladies' night?
Yeah.
Tell her hi.
I am telling you.
Both of them are great people. You're going to have a terrible night. Well, to me, but tell them hi.
Awesome.
I love those ladies, but tell them hi. But
yeah, Lauren and Tanya, my BFFs. I'm super excited. But you know what? If I lived with a roommate, I would still lock up my gun. And here's why. Because I don't know how someone else was raised. And
you're in trouble now.
I don't know what's going to set someone off. So a stranger, someone I'm still getting to know.
Mm-hmm.
What if that roommate has children?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be responsible for their child making a mistake with my firearm.
Oh,
so
seriously.
I think it's a good rule of thumb to have your gun locked up. And I also think, though, I'm one of those people where I want to be prepared when seconds count. Police are minutes away. So if your child is sharing a bedroom with you, I think a gun safe next to the bed that's fingerprint identification or whatever, or something that's quick that you can get to quickly.
I used to keep my pistol in before boating.
Yeah, boating's dangerous for that.
Swam down as hard as I could. Guns sink fast, folks. Now,
O'Malley, the three of us got invited by a friend that we have in common for a special day she's having. So we didn't do the invite list.
First colonoscopy tomorrow. It's a pre-colonoscopy party. It's a new thing. It's all the rage.
I think it's a post-colonoscopy party.
So a fudge bar it is.
Celebrating results. Well, and they've lost 5 pounds after a colonoscopy. You might as well fill it with alcohol, right? Not that I would consume, Mom. I'm very, very mature.
Jared, I have a question. Am I going to for using coconut milk in my meatloaf recipe because I don't have real milk on hand?
I think it would be delicious.
That's a question. Coconut milk is supposed to be healthy for you. It's got a lot of good fats in it, a lot of omega fatty acids.
Your bowels as well. But coconut milk will give you that sweetness, and some people put ketchup and stuff in their recipe. Is coconut milk sweet? It's got a sweet, It's more. It looks like water. Almost.
Whatever. The coconut milk that I tried, thinking it was cool, tasted like cat butthole.
And how do you know what cat butthole tastes like?
Well, I wondered what it tastes like, so I went and tested on the neighbor's cats.
And there you have it, folks.
Anyways, no, it wasn't. It didn't taste good. The coconut. Oh no, coconut water doesn't taste good.
Coconut water is different. Yeah, coconut milk.
Have I had coconut milk?
I've had coconut milk out of a coconut.
I've had the aloe vera water, which is
treats your burns.
Aside from the chunks, you got to get used to the chunks in it.
Nope.
That's pretty good.
I don't got to do nothing.
I like me a good fudge bar. We're making brownies.
You pack it.
Sherry, I
Mom,
apologize.
I'm sorry that you're watching now.
Me and your mom are Facebook friends now.
What?
I know.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
First she's your aunt and now you're Facebook friends?
Mm-hmm.
Look at you.
That's right.
So crazy, folks. The fact
Yes.
that we're related is so crazy.
Well, we found out after we'd known each other, planned all this whole thing, did all that, and then we find out.
It was our second week into the show, I think.
Yeah, and then we find out we're
related.
like third cousins. Is that what
Second.
you call it? Second cousins. Is that what you call it?
Actually, my mom would be your second.
One,
No, because
two,
our parents are
three,
cousins.
4.
So we're seconds.
I don't know how you do the math on cousinage.
Our parents are cousins. My mom is your dad's cousin. Like legit.
Right.
First cousins. So their children are, so you're my mom's second cousin.
Okay. So that means we're thirds, right?
Yeah, you and I think are
Sure.
third cousins.
There's probably a math calculator out there. Anyways.
This is really good listening, folks. I
I
bet
know.
you're all intrigued. Should we talk about other news?
Just a couple things. Did you hear about that next Benedict thing that became all the rage for 7 or 8 minutes?
I did not.
A young girl got in a fight with other young girls in a school bathroom on the Indian reservation in Oklahoma. She went home that night. She wanted to press charges, but she initiated the assault because she said the girls were laughing at her, so she squirted them with water.
Is this young lady a trans person or
No,
non-binary?
she's just one of those that says, I want to be, so I'm going to adopt this for my high school years.
The news said she was non-binary.
Yeah, and it's so the left tried coming out making it like she was murdered over being trans.
Died from her injuries of a hate crime is what they were calling it.
Ends up she OD'd. But they're even writing a law, the next Benedict law, that if you die because you're trans, everyone around you is bad or evil. I don't know. But it ended up like it was no big deal. Fight was over, no real injuries. I think she was just trying to get a little loose, trying to have some fun. And, you know.
What did she overdose on?
That I don't think has come out yet, but I think it's a mix. Someone said a mix of Xanax and laxative. I don't know.
Laxatives? That's a shitty way to go.
She
So I was wondering,
pooed herself to death.
The media, as you know, will have an agenda item. It was first played out as a hate crime.
Yep.
And basically, and I hate bullying, and
not just hate crime, but they tried saying libs of TikTok caused it to happen.
But then
because right now
they
she's
failed
the
to mention
target.
that she was the instigator of the initial interaction.
Yep.
And then they kept calling her they during the story, which I think confused people legit. They thought that it was her and more people
they thought that
were getting attacked.
That lots of people died, and they died.
And they
then
overdosed.
died.
But you know what? That's not how they led it. And this is the fourth branch of government we have, folks, and that is the media. And we already have hate crime laws. We have a lot of them.
Which are BS also.
Right. Because every crime is a hate crime. So, I mean, it shouldn't, why add the extra? And so now, because that didn't work, because the coroner came out and said that she did not die of any injuries, and they did not die of any injuries. They actually died by suicide or accidental overdose.
Well, you know, they mark accidental overdose down as suicide.
Which again lets the left say, well, the bullies caused her. So this is such a slippery slope, folks, because.
But they've got an agenda. They want to have a huge. See, here's the weird thing. We live in a world. I don't know how this country makes it. We have half of the country, or 40% of the country, wants radical change. Radical, like unrecognizable change.
90% of all statistics are made up.
Yeah, probably more than that. If I'm saying it, 110 of all. But, and then you've got another 40% on this side that want no change. They feel comfortable where it's at and they feel it works. Is some change needed? Sure. But they're running to some fences that you can't follow.
They have to have a victim class. There has to be a victim class.
Yeah. And then you've got the conservative side. Is there some things that aren't working well? Yes. So you can't protect everything, but these two are running further and further away from each other. And then you've got some people in the middle who either don't know, don't care, or like they
want to be left alone.
A 20-year-old young man who just wants to drink some beer and sniff a girl's neck and call it a day. And the world is, and I don't know how this country makes it. It's a lot better than cat butthole. I don't know how this country, you know how I know? Because someone's told me that
I don't want to know how you know.
That coffee from this one gas station tastes like cat butthole. And I tried that coffee, and that's what I compared it to. And I take them at their word.
I already have in my imagination how you know, and nothing will change that.
But anyways, and I don't know how we make it. I don't know how we go through an election, because if Trump wins, we'll feel good, we'll feel vindicated, we'll feel safe. But half of the world, half of the country will explode, including everyone who's on daytime TV. I'm talking to you, The View. And then
they're terrible.
And then if Biden re-wins, that twisted up my tongue a little bit, re-wins, it's done. You know, the conservatives, they're going to explode. And then also we're going to continue down this path of no economic growth, no economic future. You know, sell out to China and open the borders so I can have more power. I don't see how we make it. I don't know how.
We have too many snowflakes, and we've got to get people less. Like, you have to learn to choose to be offended. You have to literally say to yourself, oh, this is offensive, and react to so. But in that same breath, you have to choose not to be.
Well, let me ask you.
Let stuff just go.
Let me ask you a question off the Facebooks, and O'Malley may count this in, because so some guy asks, here's the question. He asks, ladies, would you date a guy if he called you a female? Is being called a female offensive?
No.
At all.
Why? Why would it be offensive? That's what I am.
Apparently, all the ladies that hopped on there would be super offensive if you called them female.
What's the context? Is he's like, hey, female, make me a sandwich? Or
who that'd draw you in right there.
Oh yeah.
You'd be like, I mean, that's baby, my job. I'm seeing.
let me stop what else I'm doing in the kitchen while I'm barefoot and pregnant and hurry and jump on that sandwich. But what's the context? If you refer to me as a female, I would be offended.
That's exactly how he asked. Would you date a guy if they called you? There are so many worse things a guy can call you that should actually make you angry. So I pop on and I make a comment and I say, we are definitely fed too well in this country if that's your problem.
Oh, geez.
It's interesting how easily offended people are.
I think I'd be more offended if someone mistook me for a male.
I remember years ago, Joe Rogan had on this Greenpeace hippie vegan who wanted to reintroduce wolves and I thought, that's stupid. That's awful. Wolves will start decimating you. I agree with him.
Wanted to keep them as pets?
No, he just wanted to reintroduce them into the wild. I think we need to not only do that, but breed them hard, like make some hard, angry, hungry wolves, because we're going to keep heading down this path where sand has been kicked into the underpants until wolves start peeling population off. Like if
they will starve,
if we lost about, I would say,
plus they're protected. You can't even kill one.
It's an equation. If we lost about 20 people a year to wolves,
I'm sure we do.
All this purple hair problem goes away.
We lose people to big cats every year.
In the U.S.
Oh yeah. In fact, in California, you got to watch yourself because the cats will get you on the trails, the hiking trails.
Oh.
Death by mountain lions. I know in in Summit, they have attacks all the time. I don't know how many die. 20.
In the last 100 years. Fewer than 20.
Well, this is cougar. Well, there's a ton of attacks.
Oh, that's you ladies tonight
Yeah.
out killing young men.
Ooh, young men, no.
Cougars do. No, there's been less than 20 in
How
100
many
years.
bear attacks then? Let's compare it to that. Because mountain lions can be scared off, but a bear, not so much.
180 fatalities over the years. It doesn't say years. Now, but if a couple of super wolf packs, in World
We're
War
seriously
One,
going down such a weird path right now.
in World War One, in France, they stopped the fighting in the trenches to kill wolves because wolves were taking platoons. And that's what we need.
Hey, lions took platoons in Africa.
Sure. And Africa doesn't dye their hair purple. Some tribes dye it red, but I think that's a cultural thing, not a twitchy
I don't
thing.
think it's the tribes that went to war necessarily. Like they were taken out like military. The lions, isn't there a movie about it? I swear there's a movie where a lion literally was eating people right out of their tents in this military compound. And it was like they had to stop what they were doing and hunt the lion because they were losing
also a movie
people.
about a 40-foot tall gorilla.
He's real.
Oh. Anyways, but
He's
no,
the king
I'm just saying,
Kongs.
if we had wolves roaming the countryside, culling the human race, people would start having more consideration about what really matters in life.
And this is the longest trail you've ever taken us on, this rabbit hole.
This is?
Now let's think about it.
Okay.
If we can be armed, we can kill wolves unless
Sure.
they're protected. So are you
Perfect.
saying we unprotect the wolves, we make them hard, like
Why
you
are
said?
wolves protected?
Because they're endangered species list.
And if there's a whole bunch of them running around, they're not what?
They're no longer. But you're saying you want the government to put wolves on the streets of Salt Lake
Government.
City.
Dr. Evil.
And I think to quote you said, and breed them hard.
Make them
Gross.
hard.
And then
Yeah.
you want them to thin the herd, so to speak.
I want the wolves to thin the herd.
Right.
I'm thinking if we lost 20 people a year
Thinking
to
you've lost your
wolves,
mind.
if we lost 20 people a year to wolves, people all of a sudden won't have time to get offended over little things.
We've got wolves. They're called politicians. We've got laws that people should be angry about. Do you think people are going to care if there's wolves?
Well,
It may
okay.
get more people to be armed in the streets,
Bam, no more homeless problem.
or the homeless will be armed.
I'm just thinking, imagine.
Oh my gosh, I thought you said that. O'Malley, get out of his head. I thought the no homeless problem came out of him. I didn't realize it was you. Oh my gosh. Do we have any other guests on today?
Nope, this is it.
So
Do you wanna
can I
cut
tell
this?
you about the
course.
town hall Saturday?
Tell us about your town hall.
So we welcomed Trent Staggs out to the
Mhm.
county, and it was a really great turnout. A lot of state delegates came out, and Trent is having a couple fundraisers over the weekend with Senator Tuberville.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know him?
I do not.
Pretty conservative guy. He has endorsed Trent Staggs, but
Where's he out of?
I don't know. I forgot.
Okay.
But let me tell you some of the questions that state delegates asked. They wanted to know about the ABC agencies,
Mhm.
and we've asked him that on the show, and how he's ready to audit or vote them out, list end agencies, starting with Board of Education first. And then he had a plan for the FBI to audit it, make sure they're following the Constitution, but dissolving it into different sheriff's departments. So you have someone accountable. It's not just bureaucrats running rogue. And
Maybe you could keep their testing and science division, but
Like
the
their
investigative
forensics and
side
stuff.
could move into state
well,
agencies.
and I have to be clear. I always talk about this. I am such a huge supporter of law enforcement. I can't even tell you. And I feel like I have to do a disclaimer because I don't want the FBI, the good people on the ground, the agents who actually do the work and actually show up. I'm not talking about them when I talk about the FBI. I'm talking about the brass at the FBI, the ones who are appointed and the people who are marching on our rights, and they're doing so with permission from electeds. But
Sometimes more than permission. It feels like they have marching
they're
orders.
doing it on their own.
All the January 6th, that seems like it's the politicians driving that.
And do you see the proof came out that Trump did ask for National Guard to be there?
Yeah.
It just came out. But we knew this. We knew this a long time ago. And they're acting like, oh, breaking news. They just showed the receipts of it. But we knew Liz Cheney was holding back on that council. Just absolutely crazy. And yet they talked about like it was new breaking. So Trent talked a lot about federal lands, the Constitution. He's a really great candidate. The state delegates, he answered every question, even stayed after to answer more questions. TrentStaggs.com. This is his third time out. I think he interviewed with the transcript, so people around here will get to see, what came of that. Our local news was here. It was a really great turnout. So
good. A
lot of people showed up, and this makes me so happy. And Colby had his event earlier in the day, and we literally I only had 2 days to advertise for him on that, and he had a great turnout. So our state delegates are doing their job.
We had a good turnout for the caucuses too, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're really, really happy. We understand that, some people struggled because we had a little internet issue or server issue, but we had a great turnout at caucus. A lot of people showed up to vote for president. Trump won, so congratulations. He is now
what
our
percentage
nominee.
did he win by?
I don't have the final numbers.
You don't?
No, I
want to know, did he clean house? Because I heard he won in a couple of caucuses in Salt Lake.
Well, yeah.
Or that Nikki
He
Haley
lost
won.
in a couple, but overall, when I say did he win big, because to me, like 50 is big, but he's been winning by 30 points everywhere else. That's huge in a primary.
I know. If he 57 Trump for Utah, was it 57%? So we had 43% vote Haley.
I'm looking.
Holy
right now.
cow, that's wild.
Normally
39 Haley. So we had some undecideds. A couple people wrote in people. Okay.
56-42. And Ryan
56-42.
Binkley got 1%.
Hey, good showing there, Binkley.
Binkley wasn't even on the ballot anymore, but he was on printed ballots because the ballots were printed before he dropped out. And Haley won in 2 areas of the county.
Wasatch, Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's crazy. Trump won handedly. The whole state voted for Trump except for 2 counties, and I'm trying to see. I don't know. Where's Utah's? Anyway, if you look at the map, it's.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he'll take all 40 delegates to convention, and I am going to run as a national delegate this year. Or as a presidential elector. I filed my paperwork and I've paid the money and I'm starting a campaign.
Might be a part of the electoral college. There you go.
I'm going to vote to be I'm going to run to be a presidential elector or a national delegate, which means I get to go to national convention and vote for my state and vote for Trump. So I'm hopeful.
I want you to be an elector.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because that is like, that's the way cool thing.
They only choose a handful, and it's statewide, and so sometimes district. So when I ran last time, they chose 2 of us out of District 2. It was myself and Chris Stewart. But then
For
COVID.
electoral college?
no, to be a national delegate.
Yeah, no,
for
I
District
want you to
2.
be in the electoral
Trying
college
out for
because
both. I'm
that
applying.
is a cool thing.
It's a small group.
That is a very small group.
So I'm kicking off my campaign here. So hopefully you'll interview me on your show
You
sometime.
bet. So tell me about what you want to do as an electoral collegist.
I'm going to vote for the People's Choice, which is Donald J. Trump.
All right, there you go, folks.
Me and all 40 of my votes. But again, I get elected by state delegates, so I have to
So
campaign.
in Utah, the state delegates elect the electoral.
The national delegates and the presidential electors.
That is cool. Dude.
Yeah. And luckily, we've got some excellent state
Holly
delegates.
for electoral college and national delegate.
I can just tell you, I wouldn't be one of those people that tells one thing to your face and then gets there and goes, I don't know if Trump is a really good example, and I don't know if he should have my vote. Yeah, not doing it. Sorry. Evan McMullen, he's reliable.
Is he still around?
I have no idea, but
Do you think the CIA pulled him back in? They're like,
Oh.
oh, this is a lost cause.
put him in witness protection.
Like they put him out the first time. He didn't work in Utah. What do we do now? Give him a wife and some kids. And they put him out the next time with a wife and some kids. And he's running as an independent. Let's kick the Democrat out so the Democrat Party will back him. Oh, that's a good idea.
No, the poor Democrat, the guy that was supposed to be the nominee,
Yeah,
finds
Cale.
out at his convention.
Cale Weston.
By
Cale
the way, we're gonna put in him. I'm
Cale
just like,
is a good dude.
you
I don't
gotta be
know.
so angry.
I don't know why Cale is a Democrat. My people in Midvale are pissed too. So they voted for me. You people in your bubble over there have yet to see what we are seeing over here. That's right. That's right.
No, I'm telling you, we've seen it and we've dealt with it. This county used to be completely blue.
Yeah.
Absolutely
This
blue.
county was
Not
Democrat
one- in fact, they used to do Republican meetings in Brad Pratt's family's
before the Democrats
residence.
were kooky, though. Just throw that out
Completely
there.
blue. So it's been
It was a Democrat
one
county because it was built
office
by
at a
miners.
time that we have physically gone out and done the work. I've knocked on doors in Erta, and you guys have no idea what knocking on doors in Erta looks like. It's not knock, knock, go to the next house, knock, knock. It's knock, knock, walk 5 acres, knock, knock, walk
Mhm.
5 acres. So we absolutely have been we've been
What are they trying to sell you?
vicious.
You got immigrants running in traffic in front of you trying to sell you stuff.
Probably
I
tamales
wonder what they're.
and oranges.
I might be up for some tamales.
Oh, their tamales are so
Now-
good.
I do have to say, I learned something this week. You know what Tooele means?
No.
It's go shoot for bear. I didn't know that. And our high school mascot's a buffalo. How did we
Our
drop that ball?
State mascot. We've got buffaloes all over the state.
But Tooele means bear.
That's really cool. Thank you
Should
for
be the
sharing
Tooele
that.
Bears. I know. How many transients you got walking by your house every day?
I have them in my neighborhood.
I just have one transient.
And I live in Stansbury Park, which
on
is
the
a-
island. She
Yeah,
lives
and we have them there.
like you have to. Do you really?
Yeah, and they sit right at the bank corner as you're pulling out of the neighborhood. And usually it's a husband-wife team, and a lot of times they've got a stroller with them.
Oh, okay, that's heartbreaking.
It is. It's heartbreaking, and it's. But that's they're coming up at you at gas stations asking you to fill their tank. It happens at Walmart a lot. There's a lot at Walmart. We're
It-
not protected by any means, and what's sad is that a lot of the housing that we have out here it doesn't exist. So I know people who are struggling to find a place to live who have jobs. So the housing, we're going to have a lot more homeless folks if we can't get this. You're spelling it wrong, aren't you?
Why is it pulling it from there? Oh,
What are you
something
doing?
go wrong? I think we might have.
No, we still have live. We're on. What do you?
It's doing something. Computer's losing its mind, or Jared doesn't know what he's doing. Anyways, yeah. I think it's going to just get worse.
It's getting everywhere. And that's the hard part is there's nowhere, even in rural parts of the community, we're seeing it everywhere. But you got to be vigilant, folks, and you've got to choose who you choose for sheriff is highly important.
Well, no, it's more than that.
Highly important, and who you ask to be a representative, but then how often you engage with them is absolute, because picking someone and saying good riddance and then not showing up to meetings and not showing up when they actually do things that are great, then the impact of when they do something bad is so overwhelming that, it's a really weird way for people to lead. So when you have representatives that, they're going to make mistakes because they don't know what they don't know, but when they've got actual input from the people who put them in office, by people showing up at meetings, people emailing them, people who are educating themselves on what the vote is going that they're dealing with, then those same people show up and congratulate those good representatives or call them out. I think it makes for a lot better government. I really do. Because just voting them in and then walking away or complaining from afar
I
and
don't
never
think this
actually
is
doing
something
something.
a government can fix.
Well, I'm just saying your local government has to know where you stand.
We
on
have
things.
a societal rot.
Sure. But, I've been adamant not to build a homeless shelter out in Tooele County, which has been in front of our council. And I don't believe we need one. I love the idea of a privatized shelter for women that might be abused, something like that that's private. But I don't want our government building it.
No,
because I know
agree.
what happens when governments do that.
But I think
other governments ship it to us.
Yes, they do. I think the rot's different. The rot's in our culture. The rot's in our schools. It's in our youth. It's in our elderly. I mean, not to dog the boomers, but the boomers have gone too long trying to amass all the power and wealth to themselves, and they didn't think about how to manage passing that on.
Who are you talking about? Our politicians?
Just our blanket boom. All the laws written are laws that totally support our boomers. And I mean, it was written about in the fourth turning. They wrote about it in the 90s. We're going to have this issue around 2020 where the boomers are going to have to make a choice to step back on their benefits a little bit so that some prosperity can be handed into the future.
And that was a long conversation at the town hall too. About that point, Social Security and all that was discussed by Trent Staggs.
We're rotten from the core. And you know what? They've called it. Everyone who's ever studied empire say you get 250 years. That's what you get, period. 250 years, 200 to 250 years. We're at 250.
No, you're not wrong. However, we have to have a plan for those folks, especially the people. They did everything right. They were victims of the government's bad choices and business decisions that they have no control over because they invested or they put in an IRA.
Even then,
or whatever. There should be a privatized.
You know what the
bank.
boomers didn't do right? They didn't replace themselves.
That's true. But Gen X didn't offer themselves up as replacements either.
Gen X were thrown out into the cold.
I'm saying we didn't stand up to lead in place of, and we didn't ask for that leadership.
Sure.
It's millennials who've stepped up to lead, but we're kind of the generation that was like, no, the boomers got this. I don't want this.
None of us were ever elected.
Right. Well, we've got some Gen Xers in there. Mike Lee is one.
But
it's
either
true.
way, we're a society in collapse. That's where we are. And it shows all the signs are there, from our degradation of art, devaluation of currency, society
Human
that isn't
life.
replacing itself. Yeah.
Don't tell me what to brush up on. That's offensive. How dare you call me girl?
She meant female.
All right, I'll take that. Mike Lee's not too nice. Mike Lee is just enough. He's respectful, but he does not budge. If it's not constitutional, he will not vote for it. If he can't read the bill, he will not vote for it. He is the guy everyone loves to hate in the Senate because he holds them up and he takes their time. Instead of making crappy bills, he requires certain things. And if he can't read it, he's not voting for it. And there's a slew now of them. And it's only got to grow of senators who are starting to follow his lead For a lot of times,
That's right. By the time they grow, we'll only be 50 trillion in debt. You know, we surpassed to where all the servicing of the debt is more than the GDP.
Oh yeah, the interest.
That's just the annual servicing of the debt. That's not paying the bills down.
No, it's just the interest.
That's you went and got a credit card, you pay them $34 a month and keep that going.
And the American citizen is in more credit card debt than ever in the history of the world, and it's only growing. And what happens when they can't afford the credit card debt? I mean, it's bound for disaster.
I'm thinking I could get me like a Camaro, an early 70s model Camaro, and I could get me some leathers and a blue heeler dog.
Up on gasoline, bro.
And I can get me a
Camaro eats a lot of gas.
I can get me a coach gun and saw it down and wear it in a leg holster.
That would be a crime.
Won't be a crime when the government's gone.
Yeah, but your Camaro's not going to do nothing if there's no gas.
Or I think I wear the strappy outfit.
How are you going to power it?
And the
they
silver.
They never discuss that in the Mad Max movies.
Yes, they do.
Where do they get the gas from?
They have that pumper. That's what the whole movie's about. Centered all around.
Right.
That refinery.
But where are you getting it from? Because the refinery is clear in Salt Lake. Are you going to move to Salt Lake?
Well, the refinery in Mad Max sat by itself. But yeah, sure.
And where are we putting Thunderdome?
Well, no, we don't talk about.
I mean, it's out there in the West Desert. We've got plenty of room.
I think we cut this show off early. Let you get the ladies' night. Dwayne never showed up, so we can't have call in.
Well,
Holly's a kulak.
What is a kulak? I'm not gonna. Is that like a
the kulaks? The kulaks were who were killed off in the Holodomor.
Oh, that's sweet.
They were the upper lower class. A kulak was anyone that hired someone else to do work on their farm.
Oh, and you were a bitch. Just kidding. Not offended. I love you.
But yeah, all right.
I'd hire you to work my farm any day.
We're going to cut this show off a little early because Dwayne never showed up. I don't know what's going on with Dwayne. He might have texted and told me something, but...
No, he should have told me because I've got my call screener in the other room.
Oh.
But...
I hope Dwayne's okay.
Me too.
I saw him on Facebook doing...
Bitch is...
I know, Holly's cursed 3 times tonight. But
it was all
Dwayne sent pictures of skiing. So I hope Dwayne's okay.
No, I get it. I get it.
I hope he's okay. I hope he's didn't get injured up on the hill. But if he did, we'll have to go support him. But everyone, thanks for watching.
Are we really calling it?
Yeah, we're going to call. We're going to let you cut out to get to your ladies' night and karaoke and hummina. And you tell those ladies hi for me. And the new lady, tell her, random guy says hi. Anyways, remember, check out colbyforutah.com.
If you really want to have a ladies' night and you like karaoke, text me. I'll give you the deets.
You need to go read the Gulag Archipelago.
And you're only invited if you quit telling me what I have to read, because I am sick and tired of reading.
Holly,
my eyes aren't what they used to be.
Actually, Holly needs ladies' night because the caucus kicked her butt.
That ain't no joke.
Jeez.
That is not
talking to Holly.
A joke.
She was a rabid dog on a short change.
No, I was so
last weekend after the show ended, chewed my butt for like a half hour, and then gave me a hug and left.
Try me and my husband.
I do.
He has to live with me.
I do. Your husband is probably like, I'm going to Walmart.
He's a saint.
Tell your husband, magazine racks down there. Got lots of stuff. They got cars, guns, technology, magazines, whatever he likes.
And he shops all the time.
Whatever he likes, all the magazines. And if you're trying to get away from the old lady, perfect. You just sit.
That's more offensive than calling person female.
What?
Old lady. I picture a really old lady with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth with 20 kids on her arms going, hey. what time are you going to bring that paycheck over? That's what I picture in my mind when you say, that's my old lady. And he's got a wife beater on. And they ain't no sandwich. You know?
Well, what if we called them the organ grinders?
I'm going to throw up. Okay, well.
All right. Everyone have a good night. Have a good weekend.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I would never.
Don't like we call him Dad. Fred, Molly Mae, Sherry.
Kate, Mel, text me if you're legit and if you sing. Better sing, though.
You guys.
You can't get on
Holly,
you can't get crazy and fight anyone.
Have a safe night. Remember, Uber, designated driver. Or you can call me if you need a ride. No DUIs tonight. Everyone get home safe.
I love you, Mama.
Be safe this weekend. And we'll be back next Friday. Hopefully Dwayne is back on with us. And
Thank you for joining us, Fred and Mal and Mom and everyone else that joined us. I hope we did a shout out. I don't get to see everyone who's on, but we try to call you out and we appreciate your attendance.
If you leave a comment, you get a call out.
When you show up live and watch our show live, it means so much to us. If you watch us later, that means so much. Just like and subscribe on whatever platform you're watching on so you get the notification when a new show comes on. And also follow the media group, Utah.
What's that, Joe? I mean, Holly. Oh, Main Street Media Utah or KMMU.
Go on their
.org.com.
And
TV.
Subscribe to the website because that's where you're going to find all our archives and other shows that are also on this channel. And then when you can tune in at your own pace. And oh my gosh,
I have to finish my domestic duties and ask Daddy permission to go.
Girl, you got to make a sandwich. It's just the key to every man's heart. No one can make a sandwich like a woman, especially when a woman who loves the man she's making that sandwich for. It's the best sandwich on the earth. I can make my husband a PB&J.
Is that how you tell if they love you? The sandwich is good?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ask my husband. He absolutely, if I say, you want me to make you a sandwich? He's like, yeah, will you? And he makes it. And he's like, it never tastes as good as yours. There's something, I don't know.
Meatloaf and cornbread. Oh, dude. Meatloaf and cornbread. That's
sounds
fantastic.
Amazing also. But KMMU.
And Main Street Media Utah, you can do the
Is it KMMU.com?
Just KMMU.
There's no website address for KMMU. It's just Main Street Media.
You can go to KMMU.com. It's easier to find it if you type in Main Street Media.
Okay. Dinner starts over at Mal's house. What time is that? Mashed potatoes, stuffing, meatloaf. Girl, your man is never going to let you out of the house.
He'll probably be showing up to karaoke with you guys.
Hey, designated driver. Does he drive to Twila?
All right. You guys have a safe night, okay?
We love you guys. Yep. Thank you for tuning in. And hey, go to Colby's website.
Yeah, it's a good dude.
Colby Jenkins for Congress. Go check it out. Learn all you can. And get a hold of him if you have questions, especially if you're a state delegate.
Yeah.
We want you to get to know him. Well, if you're a state delegate in District 2, I should say, because you can't vote for him if you don't live in District 2. But we highly recommend getting to know both him and as well Celeste Malloy. Get to know her, give her your time. And we've had Celeste on 2 weeks ago, and she'll be on again. We also will have them live and in person here out at the county. We want you to come out, share the issues that matter. She's still a new congresswoman. She's only in 4 months or so as a voting member of Congress. And she's been a wonderful representative as far as being accountable and available to us. So we have no complaints there. I'm really impressed with Colby Jenkins. And I mean, this is going to be a really interesting race. And of course, I want to hear from you guys. So share your ideas. We love you. And we wish you a very safe and happy weekend. And give our best to your hubby, Mal.
Yeah. Good night and good weekend. We'll see you guys next week. And hopefully Dwayne's okay so he can get back on here and manhandle the production side.
Love you guys.